above your heart and repeat after me. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, where we normally have our invocation, I'm going to ask Bruce Montgomery to come up and speak.
You may be seated. Our city attorney, Ruben Duran, has circulated to the council and staff, and therefore you'll see why I am also reading this. The establishment clauses of the United States and California constitutions mandate that government remain secular and that it avoid affiliation with religious beliefs or institutions in order to avoid discrimination among citizens on the basis of their religious beliefs. Pursuant to the mandate under both constitutions, government is prohibited from endorsing prayer that either directly or implied advances one religious belief or faith over another. Then he references the 1999 City of Burbank case. The California Court of Appeals holding made it clear that invocations at city council meetings must not be, quote, sectarian prayer, e.g., the invocations may not make references to any particular religious faith or belief. Although the Court of Appeals did not leave cities with specific examples of invocations, it did set forth two general standards. First, explicit invocations of a particular religious belief or faith by references such as, quote, our Father in heaven, end quote, or, quote, Jesus Christ, end quote, will violate the Establishment Clause. I'm skipping a few sentences. To comply with the court's holding, I recommend that the city advise all persons conducting invocations as part of the city-sponsored meetings avoid references to a particular religious belief or faith. Also, such persons should be instructed that even a minimal number of references to a particular belief would violate the Establishment Clause and could potentially subject the city to a lawsuit. Thank you for that very clear statement. And then, therefore, the leadership of the Desert Hot Springs Christian Ministerial Fellowship met and addressed the mayor this, which I'm going to read. Dear Mayor Parks, City Council, and staff, in light of the recent communication regarding invocations at City Council meetings, the Christian Ministers Fellowship of Desert Hot Springs, with regret, will no longer be officially participating. Of course, other pastors, individual pastors may choose to be involved. In good conscience, we, the Christian Ministerial Fellowship, are reluctant to be in any way responsible for any litigation resulting from potential legal challenge. Ultimately, the communication I referenced above states references such as our Father in heaven or Jesus Christ will violate the Establishment Clause. Considering that this is being offered as legal counsel, and since St. Paul instructed, quote, obey the governing authorities, quote, end quote, Romans 13:1 following, we respectfully decline and regretfully, I would add decline, to participate as representing the Christian Ministerial Fellowship of Desert Hot Springs. We remain in prayer for our beloved Desert Hot Springs.
Thank you, Pastor Bruce. That's unfortunate because we have always had great invocations by the Ministerial Association. And unfortunately, we are now bound by certain preclusions to having those invocations. So tonight, we're not going to have the usual invocation, but I do want to make these comments. Chairman Richard Milanovich left us to join his ancestors on March 11, 2012. Chairman Milanovich grew up in Palm Springs. He joined the Agua Caliente Tribal Council in 1978 and became chairman in 1984. Chairman Milanovich was a kind, humble, good-natured, and big-hearted leader who will be remembered for his lifetime of service to his tribe and to the betterment of his entire community. Desert Hot Springs has been a recipient of his generosity. He is survived by his wife Melissa and 6 children. He will be dearly missed by all. His services are open to the public to be held tomorrow, Wednesday, March 21st, at the Palm Springs Convention Center, beginning at 10 a.m., ending at 12, with a reception following at the Palm Springs Convention Center. I would like to ask you all now, may we have a moment of silence in honor of Chairman Richard Milanovich. Thank you. May I now have an approval of the agenda?
Madam Mayor, if I may, representatives from the Miracle Springs and the Spa Hotels are here this evening for items 3 and 4 on your public hearing agenda. In light of staff's anticipated recommendation to continue those public hearings once more, the representatives have made a request for the council to move those 2 items to the beginning of your public hearings agenda so that if the items do get continued, they can then take their leave and not wait through the first 2 public hearings. It's completely at the council's discretion. The request has been made.
Okay.
So move.
In the approval of the agenda, we will bring those 2 items to the forefront. Does that meet with your approval, Councilman Besson Sanchez? Okay.
Go ahead.
Councilman Sanchez?
Did everybody vote?
Yeah, mine was slow.
Okay. The motion carries unanimously. Okay, there are no urgency items. We will now have a city attorney report on closed session.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, the City Council met in closed session. Item 1 was removed from the council's agenda. With respect to item 2, no reportable action was taken. However, the council will consider this matter at the end of the council meeting after all of the regular business has been considered.
Madam Mayor, to continue the report, item 3, which was public employee performance evaluation of myself, the council did meet briefly on that item with no reportable action at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And now we have presentations. If Isaiah Suave would come to the podium, please. Come over here. Is there? Is there a representative from the Boys and Girls Club? Okay, come on up. It is with great honor to recognize this young gentleman who has been voted the Youth of the Year by the Boys and Girls Club of Coachella Valley. Of America. Oh my goodness. Okay, so this is a certificate of, that is even bigger. America. So this is a certificate of recognition. I, Mayor Yvonne Parks, on behalf of the City Council of the City of Desert Hot Springs, hereby recognize and congratulate Isaiah Suave, 2012 Boys and Girls Club Youth of the Year. Congratulations. Would you like to say something?
Well, the Youth of the Year program is done by all the Boys and Girls Clubs of America, and it's an honor because it's done by merit, by his academics, his volunteering, his family. It's done by every step that we can take. His accomplishments at school, mentoring our younger youth at the clubhouse, giving his time, volunteering all the time for us, and being a mentor, which is the biggest honor for us. And this is one of the highest awards that the Boys and Girls Club of America gives.
Would you like to say something?
I'm very appreciative of the opportunity that I was given and of the award and of the city's recognition. Obviously, hard work does pay off. So I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Okay, we are now going to item 3 and 4, which, oh, I'm sorry, public comments. I was going to get right into the meat of this meeting. Okay, public comments. Starting with Aaron Begley.
Hi, Erin Begley, Family Service Association, Center Manager, Desert Hot Springs Senior Center. Here just to briefly discuss something very exciting. We have had our first meeting of the Desert Hot Springs Senior Center Advisory Council. It was held on Thursday, 3/15. The purpose of the council is to represent the needs of local residents and serve in advisory capacity to the Board of Directors for FSA and staff responding to these needs. The main intent of the Advisory Council is to foster community sense of ownership for FSA programs and services. Council will act as a liaison between the community and the center to strengthen the services that we provide. We have 10 members currently. 3 members are clients, they're senior citizens. 3 are volunteers of the center, and 2 are just community members at large, and it was a pleasure to meet them. Hopefully I can introduce them at a later time in front of you. And 2 city officials. We are seeking a few more members, hoping to get representation from the business, health, and service club and faith-based organizations. If you are interested or know anybody, please contact me for an application Monday through Friday, 8 to 2. Or you can call me at 760-329-6411, extension 213. At the next meeting in June, we will be there. A chairperson, a vice chairperson, and a secretary will be appointed, and the council's main functions will be focused on program development, fund development, and public relations. How much time? Okay, so in February, on another note, we did a client satisfaction survey with the senior citizens. We collected a total of 52, and we took all that data and compiled it, and on the whole grand scale of it, we're averaging a 4.7 out of a possible 5. So I think that is just proof that our senior citizens in Desert Hot Springs are very satisfied. And it's a continual survey that they can conduct at any time, and we collect them. So they're open to that. I'm hoping a lot of you will receive Family Service Association's annual report in the mail. It also has a DVD of a video that pretty much just captivates the organization as a whole. I know in the community there's a lot of just talk about who we are. People think they know who we are. So this annual report will demonstrate it very well in a snapshot approach. But we're an impressive nonprofit organization that is doing wonders in the city of DHS, which is an honor. So thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Now, this is a little unusual. These 3 people wanted to come up at the same time. No? One after the other. Okay, Lorraine Salas.
It may seem that we want to come up together because we are part of a group, and it's a very progressive group that's in the Coachella Valley. All of you have probably heard about it.
It's Occupy Coachella Valley, and this movement has sprung up across the country for a very simple reason, and that is the 1%, which is the ultra wealthy, is basically infringing on people's rights. And with the current economic crisis, that the top 1% pay also their fair share of taxes. We also state here that we know of Citizens United that allows the 1%, or corporations rather, to give unlimited campaign contributions to those that are running for office, or candidates, or politicians that are already in office. So we ask that, this is as part of our group, that the 1% pay their fair share in taxes and help sustain the education of our children and adults, along with the health and wellness of our society. We also ask that those that made the problem to pay for the problem. One of the many issues that we are addressing and we want to address tonight is the fact that the 99% of foreclosures are in fact fraudulent, according to the Equitas independent study that the city of San Francisco approved of. So we asked the city council to approve a resolution by next agenda, but to be included in the next agenda. So, which states the following. In view of the unresolved legal issues surrounding the bank foreclosures, such as robo-signing, proof of lender ownership, loan documents not written in the borrower's primary language, and the loan processes being riddled with fraud and deception, we ask the City Council to pass a motion in support of the cause to stop illegal and wrongful evictions. We further ask the Council to go on record urging the local courts and law enforcement agencies to suspend the eviction procedures that is devastating to not only the families in this community, but the families across Coachella Valley and the families across the United States. Thank you.
Lewis Stewart?
Good evening. Lorraine mentioned the Equitas report, which we've provided a copy of for the City Council to review at their leisure. And in that report, they came to the conclusion that in 84% there were one or more clear violations of law. In a not yet released report, the Department of Housing and Urban Development comes to a similar conclusion, that the major banks have knowingly committed wide-scale fraud against citizens who have home loans with them. California Civil Code 2924 provides that the bank in a non-judicial foreclosure will protect the debtor trustor from wrongful loss of property. Since that is not happening, what's to stop an injured homeowner from filing charges against local bank officers under California Penal Code Section 115, which states, every person who knowingly procures or offers any false or forged document to be filed, registered, or recorded in any public office within this state is guilty of a felony. We ask the City Council to stand united with their citizens who are being defrauded by these banksters and adopt Lorraine's resolution and the following resolution. Whereas the County of Riverside has withdrawn substantial funding for homeless services in the Coachella Valley, and whereas the County of Riverside has proposed that each individual city in the Coachella Valley fund the shortfall caused by this defunding to the approximate sum of $108,000 per city per annum, and whereas the problem of homelessness has been both caused and aggravated by the foreclosure policies of the banks and their branches within the Coachella Valley, it is proposed that each city shall consult their attorneys and accountants and instruct them to devise an equitable foreclosure mitigation tax or fee on local banks to replace the loss of funding for homeless services, and that said foreclosure tax shall be placed on the local ballot in the next election or sooner. Thank you.
Thank you. Carolyn Krause?
Hi, my name is Carolyn Krause, and I would like to read this. It's California's Attorney General Kamala Harris announced a new package of bills dubbed the Homeowners Bill of Rights. Attorney General Kamala D. Harris recently announced the California Homeowner Bill of Rights, designed to protect homeowners from unfair practices by banks and mortgage companies, and to help consumers and communities cope with the state's urgent mortgage and foreclosure crisis. Joined by Senate President Pro Tem Darrell Steinberg and Assembly Speaker John A. Perez, Attorney General Harris announced her sponsorship of 6 bills designed to guarantee: 1, basic standards of fairness in the mortgage process, including an end to dual-track foreclosures; 2, transparency in the mortgage process, including a single point of contact for homeowners; 3, community tools to prevent blight after banks foreclose upon homes; 4, tenant protections after foreclosures; 5, enhanced law enforcement to defend homeowners' rights, paid for by fees imposed on banks; 6, a special grand jury to investigate financial and foreclosure crime. This package of bills include numerous reforms, including an end to dual tracking, in which banks pretend they are open to modifying someone's mortgage while at the same time foreclosing on their home. It will also address the egregious violations recently uncovered, showing that 84% of foreclosures in one California county were illegal. This is a powerful step toward ending the mortgage nightmare the big banks have inflicted on California's homeowners in the form of a foreclosure crisis. Additionally, in light of the rampant fraud, Attorney General Harris has asked the Federal Housing Finance Agency, the agency regulating the government-controlled mortgage items, to halt foreclosures until I'm sorry, this is like it's all blued out, until it has completed a thorough, transparent analysis of whether principal reduction is in the best interests of struggling homeowners as well as taxpayers. Sorry about that. So that's from Kamala Harris. Thank you.
Thank you. Russ Martin.
Mayor Parks, council, staff. My name is Russ Martin. I'm a director on the Mission Springs Water District. The Water District is committed to serving our community in a variety of ways. We're kind of unique in that our customers are also our owners. So we're sort of the Green Bay Packers of the utility companies. In furtherance of serving our community, I would like to present a check to Michael Platt of the Little League to in support of that. So Michael, would you come on up here, sir? Florence, my wife will bring up a check on behalf of the Mission Springs Water District and the customers and owners of our district. We'd like to present you a check in the sum of $950. And you know, I remember being on a Little League team and how much it meant to me when I was a kid. And so I hope this helps in our small way of furthering that thing. So thank you for what you're doing, and congratulations on your fine work.
Okay.
Okay, sir.
Thank you. Tom Heil.
I'm here on behalf of the Desert Hot Springs Elks and for charities all over the state of California. In 2009, a remote caller bingo law was passed by the state legislature, which directed and required the State Gaming Commission to accept applications and, where applicable, issue state gaming licenses. The commission on their own, arbitrarily, in my opinion, illegally, last June, put out a letter and said, we're not going to do it anymore starting July 1st. We don't have the budget money to do it. And they stopped. This went on for several months. Then somewhere in mid-fall, early winter, 4 organizations that were trying to go ahead and play got their city's approval to go ahead and play off the city license. Part of this tonight is to get rid of rumors. The Desert Hot Springs Elks is state licensed, unlike the 4 organizations that received cease and desist from the State Gaming Commission, even though they said they had no money to operate. So there's a new Senate Bill 383 that's already passed the state Senate 38-0, and it's again stuck in the Appropriations Committee over on the Assembly side. On behalf of charities all around the state, and particularly your own Desert Hot Springs Elks, I'd like to see a resolution by the city go to Assembly Speaker John Perez with a carbon copy to the governor urging urgency and immediate passage of Senate Bill 383. There are over 100 organizations, charity organizations in the state. They're sitting in limbo right now. They've signed contracts with the host company, Bingo Innovations, but most of them are too afraid of the State Gaming Commission to go ahead and play. The 4 that did try to go ahead and play, they received cease and desist. Now, in this first year of operation, we actually were open 51 weeks. We raised $25,000 here in Desert Hot Springs, a fair portion of which has gone to youth activities. The state, there's been over $300,000 raised, and that's just a drop in the bucket. That's by in January, the last month that we were fully open. There was still only 10 or 12 organizations playing. There's 100 sitting on the sidelines that want in on it. Within a year of the time they're allowed in and licensed properly, you're looking at $3 to probably $4 million a year in the state of California for charity purposes, and the law is very strict. It has to be used for charity. So anyway, I would encourage the council to do a resolution and support and help us. Thank you.
Dot Reed.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, staff, and citizens. This is the middle of March. The end of May will be Memorial Day, and the Community and Cultural Affairs Commission has a wonderful event planned for Memorial Day at Veterans Park. And as most of you know, there are tiles there in memory of or in honor of citizens and veterans. Now, we're ready to engrave some more of them because there's some blank ones there. And there are applications on the back table if you would like to have a tile engraved in honor or in memory of a loved one. Each tile is $50. We need all of the applications into City Hall prior to April 15th in order to have them engraved for May the 30th. If you have already sent one in, please let us know. Let Eloisa know that you've sent one in and that it is pending. Or I know that there's 3 in the past that were neglected. However, I have those names and they will be engraved. So let us know. Eloise's extension is 251. Is that right, Martine? Okay. So you can let her know, or you can, catch me in the supermarket because other people have done that same thing. So we would like everybody that wants one to get it in prior to April the 15th so that we can get them done. There's applications on the table back there, or you can request one and it will be mailed to you. And on just another quick note, House of Hope has been one of the recipients of the Elks Bingo, Food Now, Boys and Girls Club, many charities right here in Desert Hot Springs. It's harder and harder for charities to raise money, and it's a shame that they're holding it up. So let's do what we can to help them. Thank you.
Adrian Miracle.
Mayor, council, and staff. I have just one question, and I guess I should direct this to Ruben Duran. Can we still sing God Bless America? Well, we were just told we couldn't. I know, this is a serious, Reuben, do you know?
Would you like me to respond, Madam Mayor?
Adrian won't take no for an answer.
I won't take no, she knows.
And certainly, Ms. Miracle, I'm happy to have a discussion with you afterwards. The advice that I gave to the city council is very specific about invocations at city council meetings.
So it would be specifically.
So singing the national anthem or a song like that would not be the same situation. I
Okay.
don't know that we've ever sung God Bless America at a
So
city
that-
council meeting, but
Okay, so that if we can't give an invocation, why can't we stand up and sing God Bless America? Really, really.
Thank you, Adrian. Paul Miller.
Good evening, all. I'm here as a citizen, but I'm also here as a pastor, not representing Christian Ministerial Fellowship of Desert Hot Springs. But I've been involved in the city council meetings since about 1996, 95, as soon as I moved here and received a call to be pastor of Christ Lutheran Church here in beautiful downtown Desert Hot Springs. And immediately upon my arrival and getting involved, I began doing invocations, and there weren't any issues. So I'm really saddened that it appears that that our government is so bending over backwards to accommodate the few that the majority have to kowtow. We as Christians have never said or denied that that there couldn't be a Buddhist up here, an atheist promoting whatever his philosophy might be, or some other kind of what we would call faith to speak their, And it's just kind of interesting that the fear rears its ugly head when it's Christian. But you notice that there hasn't been any issue about if a Muslim, which has every right to pray to Allah, I don't care about that, or a Jew to likewise pray to Elohim. And yet, if we are Christian, we can't do that. And it's just too bad that in our politically correct society that this has to be the case. I regret that I can no longer stand here and do the invocation. And yes, many of you have probably picked up that we've implied strongly the God to whom we are praying, but that was not in deference to some other God. And yet the government says, oh yeah, you're promoting that Christianity. That's a bunch of, well, I'm an ex-truck driver, so I have to be careful, but I just get a little tired of this constant. There's one person that's upset. He raises his voice, and then the government yields to that. It's just so disgusting, but it also is an indication of what should be going on in these latter days anyway. So I just regret that I will not be able to. Yet at the same time as our statement made, which I do agree with, we still will pray for our beloved city, but personally I will also be praying for each and every one of you, as I do almost every evening as I lay my head upon this a pillow, and I pray in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Michael Platt.
Mayor, council, staff, citizens of Desert Hot Springs, Michael Platt for Little League baseball and softball. We're having our opening day Saturday, the 31st. That's just a week away at 10 o'clock. We're still looking for 11 and 12-year-old boys and all ages of girls. We have some openings for. We've pretty much filled up the rest of the league. But come on down and enjoy. And if you know of a kid that wants to play, I ask you to call Jessica Olson, 760-464-1006, so she can get them into a slot and onto a team as soon as possible. We're practicing. We're ready to play baseball. And I was not expecting that check tonight. Somebody forgot to tell me. I barely came in here off the construction site, so forgive my appearance. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes public comments, other than those that are for specific agenda items. We are now going to jump to public hearing 3 and 4, which was continued from February 21st for both the consideration of a transient occupancy tax appeal filed by the Desert Hot Springs Spa Hotel pursuant to section 3.20.100 of the city's municipal code, and consideration of a transient occupancy tax appeal filed by the Miracle Springs Resort and Spa, also pursuant to section 3.20.100 of the city's municipal code.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, I have met on more than 3 occasions with the parties in this contested case in pursuit of a settlement or a resolution of this matter. We're not completed, we're not there yet. I would request that the council continue both of these matters till the second meeting in April.
Madam Mayor, I move to move each of these items to the second meeting in April, which would be April 24th.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, as soon as it comes up on the wonderful screen. Motion by Councilman Betts, second by Mayor Pro Tem Pye. Please vote. Motion carries unanimously. Now we're going to go back to public hearing item number 1, which is the Pearson Professional Plaza Tahiti Partners, LLC. Martine?
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council. This project before you is the Pearson Professional Plaza, and there's various applications involved with this project. It's a general plan amendment, a zone map amendment, tentative parcel map, a development permit, a design review permit, a conditional use permit, and an environmental assessment. Back in August of 2008, Tahiti Partners filed applications for the project before you tonight. The applicant proposes to change the general plan land use designations from R1 single-family residential to neighborhood commercial and develop the site with commercial uses. The site's approximately 9.4 acres located south of Pearson, bounded by Pearson to the north, Buena Vista to the south, Villa Loreto to the west, and Choya Drive to the east. And looking at the aerial there, it's the center vacant piece of land just south of the high school football field. The existing and zoning and general plan designations are as follows. You have to the north the school, which is a public school. To the west, you have residential medium density, residential and general commercial. To the south, you have single-family residential, and to the east, single-family residential along with general commercial uses. As mentioned, the general plan proposes to change this area from R1 single-family to neighborhood commercial. The same would be true for the zoning. Under the existing designation, it's R1 single-family residential. That would allow up to 47 single-family homes if they were to be subdivided under the current zoning designation. But the proposed change of zone would allow the project to move forward, and it would permit construction of those buildings up to a height of 35 feet. There's a parcel map that's also associated with this project. It's going to divide the 9.4 acres into about 12 parcels. And as you can see, the parcelization that's being proposed on the map on your screen, Okoma would be taken through the property from the east to west. There's no access to the property coming from Buena Vista. All access will be coming off of either Pearson Boulevard or Choya and Villa Loreto to the extension of what would be Okoma Avenue. As part of the development permit, the applicant proposes to construct, at least for now, what they want approval for is 48,800 square feet of commercial uses on the northern part of the property. The southern part of the property, from what would be Acoma extended south to Buena Vista, is not a part of any proposal before you tonight. It was conditioned by the Planning Commission that the applicant, because the applicant didn't have an actual project for this site, so they were conditioned to come back at a future point in time to the design review, and it'll go through the proper entitlement process back to the Planning Commission. Here's just a brief project summary of the square footages of the buildings that are being proposed and the number of stories for each of those. As you can see in the retail, that's not a part, that's the 32,200 square feet is the remainder of the 80,000 square feet that the applicant is requesting approval for. In terms of site coverage, or size and coverage and height, the applicant's requesting approval of the 80,000 square foot project. The site right now, the way it's currently zoned, well, if the general plan amendment were to be approved, it would accommodate 143,000 square feet of commercial uses. The applicant's not proposing that, and that's considering having a 0.35 floor area ratio. That would be the maximum. So the tallest building that's fronting on the Pearson is 29 feet, and it's got staggering parapets that will extend in some areas up to 35 feet, which is the maximum height in that proposed zone. The project meets all the setback requirements in the neighborhood commercial zoning district, 25 feet along Pearson, Choya, and Villa Loreto. On Buena Vista, they have it's a 10-foot setback on Acoma. Circulation, the project has been conditioned because there's a raised median on Pearson Boulevard. The project has been conditioned to be restricted to right in, right out on Pearson Boulevard. And then there'll be full turning movements on Choya and Acoma and Villa Loreto and Acoma. The project is required to have a minimum of 430 spaces. They're providing 445, so they're well above their required parking demand. The elevations, what you have in your packet are, I didn't put all the elevations in here because it'd be a lot of elevations, but in general, the proposed project here is proposing a contemporary horizontal form style of architecture. And they got some metal awnings. This had gone to the Architectural Landscape Review. It was discussed various times. I think it had gone back to the commission, I believe, 3 times. And the applicant has amended and revised the project every time it had gone back to the ALRC, and finally came back with a proposal that they recommended to the Planning Commission that it be approved. So it's a combination, I mean, it's stucco. You have varying elevations you can see, so there's no roof-mounted equipment that will be exposed. It's got some desert tone colors. The glass in the windows are recessed to give it some architectural articulation. They got some metal awnings that you can see on the end of this elevation that were actually widened out to provide some additional shade to the windows. The landscaping, that covers about almost 16% of the site is covered with landscaping. And it includes a variety of plants and shrubs. Of course, the applicant has also been conditioned to meet the ordinance of the Mission Springs Water District, the Water Conservation Ordinance that this council adopted in its entirety. There's a hydrology study that was done. This applicant, I believe that this is one of the issues that came up in the Planning Commission as well, and it was discussed, but the applicant is actually proposing to install an underground retention basin. So it would accommodate the 100-year storm for a 6-hour duration. Again, as I mentioned, design review had gone to the ALRC about 3 times. There was issues with the facades in terms of the window treatments and the shade, and that was addressed. And the Planning Commission recommended that, the ALRC recommended that the Planning Commission approve this project, forward a recommendation, at least to the council, to approve this project. The conditional use permit requirement is in this zone, this proposed zone, a conditional use permit is required if you're going to put in any kind of restaurant or medical uses. So therefore, this conditional use permit allows the flexibility for the developer to build what they're proposing on one of the parcels is a medical facility and also a restaurant. There has been a letter that was submitted by a resident that lives south of this site, and the applicant has talked to or been in contact with the resident, and I believe they have worked out all their issues. The applicant is here tonight also to address that. But staff has reviewed everything. There was an environmental assessment that was also done with this project. It was an initial study. Originally, it was done in 2009. And it was routed for comment. Due to CEQA law, there was changes that now require greenhouse gas analysis, as you know, as a result of AB 32 and SB 375. Though the applicant had gone back, did another analysis, we determined that based on the analysis, there were mitigation measures that were required to mitigate impacts to greenhouse gases. We included those mitigation measures in the initial study again, and then we recirculated the initial study for public comment. So during that public period, we received, I think, 3 letters that were really just concurring with the mitigation measures that we were proposing to impose on the project. So with that, there was no other additional environmental analysis required. Staff is recommending that the council adopt the resolution, adopting the mitigated negative declaration and mitigation monitoring and reporting program for the project, and also adopt the resolution approving the general plan amendment 0208, zone map amendment 0208, tentative parcel map number 35583, development permit number 0308, design review permit number 0408, and environmental assessment number 0508. That concludes my staff report. If there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you, Martine. Okay, now I am going to open the public hearing. First of all, if the applicant would like to come before I have public comments or have public comments before the applicant, what would you prefer? Okay.
And thank you for allowing me to be here. This has been a long process. We started actually in 2006. And we actually paid, I think, over $50,000 in application fees in 2008. So it has been a long process, and I appreciate everybody's patience. This project was originally not just picking a piece out of the sky. We were actually asked by the city to come in and look at this particular property and this particular, to do something in specific. The growth of the city is west, and at that time there were a lot of applications in for new homes, but without the attenuating commercial and retail space that was going to be needed to service it. There was also a large need for medical. Our company had built a duplicate medical building in Orange County, California, that was well received, and we, along with the city included, we were involved in a committee of this city that was studying the problems of the dilemma that if you have a major medical problem here or even some minor medical problems, that you're pretty much stuck with going at least a half a way down valley. So the idea was to have a large enough medical office building that would be first class, that could attract the type of medical services to meet the needs of this community. There was also a need or desire to have a family restaurant, possibly a more recognized name, but for certain to try to attract a family restaurant of the Coachella Valley. The other pieces of the needs were some additional retail that would be a higher scale retail to attract that type of a tenant. And then the last need, kind of a mixed piece, and that's the south half of the property, and that would be some piece that would be a commercial use, but maybe undesignated at this point in time. When we started this process, there weren't the residents around us, but we have a deep respect for the residents that are here tonight and the fact that there are residents behind us now and next to us. Accordingly, we feel like we've taken steps to meet with these residents to try to address their needs while at the same time considering the economics of the project and the needs of the city. I believe we've done that, and I am continuing to be open to suggestions and so forth by these residents because, again, as I said, we deeply respect the fact that we're coming, in essence, after they were here, even though there's some issues about the timing. So I appreciate your consideration, and I look forward to developing this project here in the city. Thank you.
Okay, just be prepared to be able to come back and answer any questions after we have our public comments. Irene Kelly.
I respectfully ask that Linda Roth go first because my statements may not be pertinent.
Linda Lennon Roth.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members, residents. My name is Linda Lennon Roth, and I reside on the south portion of the proposed Pearson Plaza on Buena Vista. I had an opportunity a little earlier this afternoon to speak with both Martine and Jeff Payne regarding some of my concerns. I also believe my letter to the council is included in your packet. When I received a response earlier in the day, I wasn't clear with respect to some of the issues, and I believe we've ironed them out, and those are as follows. And my concern is that these conditions are not put into the minutes and made a condition of the plaza moving forward, of which I'm not in objection to. The first problem I had was that the structures on parcels 10, 5, and 12, which would be the southmost portion of the development, would be restricted to 1 story. I wanted to make certain, although they were in the minutes of the Planning Commission, that they were put as a condition of your approving any or all of these items that are in front of you today. Secondly, we on Buena Vista were told that we would have a wall. I said 8 feet, however, the code says 6 feet with a cement cap, which is fine with me, with a planting strip between the sidewalk and this wall. In speaking with Mr. Payne this afternoon, he has agreed to do so. And in the minutes of the Planning Commission meeting, it's stated simply that the developer would be required to do not only the half-street improvements, but would be installing this wall immediately following rough grading. And I want to make certain that that's etched in stone also, because we will have to look at all of this for some time to come, and there is a dust issue also. So if that could be put into the conditions. There was some question with respect to 24-hour usage, and at the Planning Commission meeting, it was agreed upon mutually that the only 24-hour usage would be that of perhaps an urgent care facility that would be constructed on the northwest portion of the property. And we certainly have no objection to that. However, we do object to nightclub usage, drive-through restaurants, and things of that nature because, for obvious reasons, you wouldn't want them across the street from you either. That would be a condition. Additionally,
which we've all agreed upon, there would be no entrances or exits to the plaza from Buena Vista Avenue.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, I apologize for interrupting the speaker, but the time has elapsed.
I know.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm allowing her to go.
Okay, I didn't know that.
I'm sorry, I didn't watch. That
You're
basically concludes all of my conditions, and I think we're all in agreement. But I just want to make certain that they are, put in writing. So
As a
there's-
condition of approval.
That is correct. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Okay, now I can't read the last name, but how about Jeff?
That's me, Comer.
Comer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hello, my name's Jeff Comer. I probably don't need a mic. Matter of fact, I probably am too close to it anyway. The same concerns that they addressed, I addressed. When I bought my house back in 2008, I was not told that that was going to be zoned commercial or any other time since. That was part of the reason why I bought there. It was part of the reason why I wanted a low-density area, because I have children, and I don't want my kids to get run over. The police department is well aware of the problems that we have on Via Laredo. They've put out speed areas, but we have people speeding through there constantly. Behind our house, since it's not fully developed, we have people doing meth. I've caught it several times. The police department's been very responsive to that. We've had crime in our neighborhood very badly. These are things that I'm very concerned about with building up this. From what I'm hearing, because unfortunately, even though I live there, I'm only a house away from this, I didn't get all these notifications. I got the one of today. I got the one that we went to back in some months ago, and that's it. I live there and I haven't got the notification, so I didn't get the chance to talk to the developer and ask this. But I keep hearing this back parcel number 10 and 5 is not going to be developed. They're going to do he's going to do the money makers up front, and then he's going to get around to it when he gets around to it. I don't think that's right. If we're going to develop it, let's develop it. The wall should be put in. The roads need to be repaired. The roads on Via Laredo are atrocious. On Cholla, they're even worse. And we need to do something about the traffic. The traffic down Via Laredo all the way down to Two Bunch Palms funnels down, as the police department well knows, into that little area from, I'm unsure of the road because the signs are not all there, but from, thank you, Hacienda all the way down to Two Bunch. And every day I drive that road, I already wonder if I'm going to get clipped every day. They've done a couple things to help route the water and everything, but that has not been the fix. I am also concerned on this environmental impact. I have not seen it, but what I do see is when we do have rainstorms, the water comes rushing down, washes out that portion of the road, and we haven't had a big storm since they fixed it. But every time before that, it's destroyed that road. We don't know. So, yes, underground sounds really nice and everything, but until we actually get into that storm and stuff, and so I only got 16 seconds left, real quick. The wall needs to be put in. We don't really oppose the idea, one story on the back and do the whole lease landscaping and parking lot. Don't leave it half done and messy. Let's get through our thing so I don't have to clean my pool for the next 5 years. Thank you.
Irene Kelly?
Good evening. I've just gone totally blank. I'm so scared. But pretty much, we just want to be on record of what's been stated by Linda Roth and by Jeff. And we do want the green belt and the block walls on Buena Vista especially. It will affect, in some ways, the value of what our homes will stay. I give you a challenge, Martin. If Irvine Ranch can do it, so can Desert Hot Springs. merging commercial with residential community is so important to the aesthetics. And I know that you know it and I know it, but we have some real big eyesores in Desert Hot Springs that this was not accomplished either before your time or things that were already set when you came on board with Desert Hot Springs. I know we can do a good job with this. We knew that the city had sought a center like this with Jeff, and we're just asking that the aesthetics of the neighborhood to maintain property values continue to be sought by Desert Hot Springs. Make it better than what we've had and bring it up to par. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have any questions by the council? Anybody in the queue? These will probably be questions for you, Jeff. Okay, first of all, Mayor Pro Tem Jan Pye.
Mr. Payne, do you have any objections to Ms. Roth's conditions being put in a resolution?
Ms. Roth sent a letter to the city, and she and I have spoken about this letter. Maybe I could put them right on the record by reading, I won't read each of the conditions, but I'll discuss each one. Everything that she has in number 1, this is on page 3 of her letter dated March 13th, is fine with us.
Hold on just a moment. For the council, it's page 183 in our packet. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Number 2, this is where I'm better put.
183 in the packet.
There are 2 issues. One, we don't typically put the block wall in immediately after rough grading. We actually have to get to kind of a finer grading, meaning it's maybe a term of art. But let's just say as part of our creating the finished lots, we will build this wall, and she has here a 6-foot wall. And if the code is, an 8-foot wall, if the code is a 6 foot plus a cap, so 2 or 3 inch cap, then I would like these subtle changes made to this paragraph, but we would build it as part of this process. 3, we are fine with those conditions. That's the street improvements to Buena Vista. And she doesn't have it here, but we had agreed to earlier that we would put some type of green belt, if you will, some landscaping between the edge of the curb of Buena Vista and this wall, and we will remain agreeing to that. 4, the plaza should not allow any 24-hour usage, with the exception of urgent care. We are fine with that. Number 5, there are 2 problems. I'm sorry.
Number 5, let me ask staff, if that was to want to occur, wouldn't there have to be a CUP that goes before the Planning Commission first?
Yes, well, it depends, and I think the applicant was going to clarify this. For a drive-through, yes, you'd have a CUP, but if you're going to have like a walk-in Subway, you wouldn't need a CUP for that.
What about a nightclub?
Nightclub, you would need a CUP.
Okay.
So her language here, which I respect, where she was coming from, and I don't think, it says no fast food and or drive-up restaurant. Well, I consider a Subway to be a fast food, and I also consider it a drive-up. We will agree to having no drive-through restaurants. And in fact, we originally appeared before the Design Review Committee several years ago, back in 2006, I believe. And at that point in time, they were reluctant to allow us to have a drive-through restaurant, actually for a completely different reason, because there's a high school across the street. But we presently do not have plans to put a drive-through, and I understand that a drive-through would take a CUP. So there's no plans of ours. we would agree to not have a drive-through, but I can't agree to having no fast food or drive-up restaurant. And I'm a little disappointed in the nightclub tendency, but I'll live with that one.
Well, but it has to have a CUP, so.
Right, I'm just kidding, I was just kidding. There should be no entrances or exits to the plaza from Buena Vista Avenue. We have about $200,000 into the engineering plans already, and they do not have any entrance or exit on Buena Vista, so I doubt we'll be changing that, and we would agree to that condition.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I have one more question. With the resolutions that we have, shouldn't we vote for them in the opposite order? The last one is making the general plan change, the permit, yada. The city manager shaking his head. Madam Mayor, when we do vote, if we vote, I suggest that we switch the resolutions that we have. Two resolutions in the packet right after all of this.
Okay. Through? Okay, Councilman Bitts.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Could I ask staff to put the aerial up, see what looks to appear to be a Google map?
So I'd like a couple points of clarification. The approval is for the entire site, if I'm correct. We're not just approving the front half, but we're not approving for the back half is what the specific use would be. Is that correct? And to address
Except that it wouldn't be a drive-through restaurant.
Right.
Or a nightclub.
And and to address Mr. Gomer and his great voice. Thank you. Go. Oh, okay. Okay. To address one of his questions was building the thing all at once, and I mean, building the improvements on the site really is somewhat dictated by the economics. We do not have a proposed user for that site, so unfortunately, we would finish that lot. We have to finish that lot for, if no other reason, we are putting this underground retention basin in, and it requires, to be installed before. But there is some economic and other factors, including the approval factor for that rear part of the site. So I want clarification, and I do respect where he's coming from, that you don't want years of construction. But I think it would be more likely that we would construct, as we lease or sell the different parcels, we would build and construct those parcels, those specific improvements. As we build, as we get approval for, and the economics dictate something for the back, they would come in and approval, and the actual construction time of say 30,000 square foot, single story, 20-foot building would be a year at most. So it would be a separate thing. And we do, after the site is in place, we have to do certain things to mitigate dust control so that there isn't this constant dust blowing around by a raw lot in the back.
Mr. Payne.
Yes.
While you're talking about that, the landscaping that's on the inside, can that be completed prior to construction or the erection of those buildings in the back portion? To propose the aesthetics?
Let me kind of talk about how I believe, and I think as a practical matter, as a technical matter, it may be a little bit different, how the site would be built out. We purposely developed this site with mini parcels, and that is so that if a restaurant wanted to come in and buy that parcel, they could buy it. If the office building wanted to buy it, so we could parcelize this out. because of that, that also allows us to do things like what you're saying. That is that we would first rough and fine grade this thing to create these different pads. The next thing we would do is build probably most of the parking lot except the rear half. When we build the parking lot, we would also put in the landscaping. So as a practical matter, it does flow in that way. Now we would have these different parcels. So as we sell and or lease individual parcels and we build out those parcels, we'll basically have a finished lot there. And so the only thing that would be remaining to be done would be the curb and gutter, the sidewalk up to that particular building, and then the building itself.
When do you propose to put the perimeter wall?
Well, that's what I was saying earlier. The perimeter wall would be, whereas I might do it a little bit later, out of respect for the neighbors, I'd be willing to put it up, reasonably after we complete the rough grading. It's not to say that it happens immediately after the rough grading, because we actually have to have our finished elevations. And if I go by the technical term of rough grading, we don't have our finished elevations in order for us to put the wall in.
That makes sense.
I have one other point of clarification. This is maybe minor, but it says that the applicant is Tahiti Partners, LLC. Technically, the property is owned by Pearson Professional Plaza, LLC, and Tahiti Partners Properties Corporation is the manager of that LLC. That is it. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Councilman Betts, would you, I'm sorry to have taken away your thunder.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
So the underground retention basin, where's that going, in the south part of this parcel?
It is in the southeast corner. That is the lowest part of this parcel. So
that'd be on Choya and Buena Vista approximately, right?
Correct.
And you're gonna have to put that in almost as soon as you start commencing work?
We will, yes.
And then it'll be done and finished grade on there?
Correct. And we have actual experience. We are building a project in Palm Springs right now that we installed one 4 years ago, and then the economy kind of stopped the project, but we started again. And the underground retention basin has worked very well. We even went through, I think, a 20-year flood.
I don't have any, the part about the underground retention basin, I'm sure engineering dealt with all that, and I'm fine. I'm not gonna question that one. I'm looking more at the process here. You're asking us to approve the entire project, and I have no problem doing that, but I'm looking at some of the impacts to the residences, and I like to see that wall, all the perimeter landscaping done on some reasonable schedule. And what I can see is if that wall's not done, you've got an active, successful front portion. Now, as we have in the city in many places, that dirt lot becomes a new driveway into your property. And if it's graded, then we've got, we don't know how long it's gonna sit there. And I don't wanna put any pressure on you to do it immediately, because we all understand the economy. But I'm thinking that we get all this perimeter landscaping done, the walls done, all that taken care of quickly, like within a short period of time. Does that impact your ability? I mean, can you go just finish grade the whole parcel?
When we start construction, it takes about 3 months for us to rough grade the property, fine grade the property, create the lots, do the public and private improvements. And we do it all as one thing. I mean, we will do these 3 side road improvements, curbs and gutters over there. We will do, it will look like finished lots. And as I said, once we get to that process, we'll go ahead and build this wall.
Okay, so it won't be very long after you finish the
that whole process should take us about 3 months.
Okay, so 3 months from start to finish, and that wall will start to go up. And
Correct.
As far as the neighbors know, whatever you do on that south parcel, it'll be sitting there waiting for something to come along. But as far as they know, on their side of the wall, it's going to look finished, as it will at the end of the day, right?
And I will say that we have even, not only do we desire to be good neighbors, but there's some practical marketing issues. I mean, for us to attract the right tenants and buyers for these parcels and the buildings, to have this finished lot is actually beneficial to us as well.
Okay. So I just want to, make sure that from the perspective of the neighbors, as they look on this project, to understand there's a construction time, but once, we're not going to end up with chain link fence and green mesh. We're going to have finished wall project done and then waiting to do something on those other pads.
Well, you just said something else, and we actually are required to put up the green fencing.
Not forever, though, is the point I'm making.
As long as we have construction going on, we have a requirement under the dust control in the PM10 plans of this particular valley. So
After you have a perimeter wall all the way around this, you still have
we're
to
not
have...
putting a perimeter wall. We're only putting a perimeter wall across the back. This project
All right.
does not have a perimeter wall except across the back, and that is just because of a condition we agreed to with the neighbors.
So how long is that green chain link fence, with green material going to be? We're going to be looking at that.
We have to do, and it's too early for me to say, we are required to put in place this dust control plan, the PM10 plan. And I have to admit, I have not sat down with our engineers to even conceive of what that PM10 plan, that plan has to be approved. So it's too early for me to specifically dictate what we could do to maybe even mitigate not having that fence around there.
And I'm well up to speed on PM10, and it's been of concern to me for many years. So, and when you say that fence needs to get up there, it gives me pause to think that, okay, we got something that's got to get worked out. I just don't want to see a chain link fence with the green mesh on it for 10 years down the road. And
that makes two of us. If it's sitting there for 10 years, then I'm probably in trouble.
Our decision up here is the worst case scenario, not the best.
I don't know if it would help, but we could also put the what I'll call the tan material instead of the green material. That might
6 one half dozen other to me.
Might look a little better.
Now, do we have a street dedication here on Acoma? It's asked the Google map to be shown because there's no street going through there now. Do we have any type of easement, or is there an easement plotted? I mean, is that a... I mean, it hasn't been constructed, but it's...
Let me go back.
I did not know that was technically going to be a street.
I don't know if it ever was either.
I think it's just our parking lot. And through the design review and our conversations with city staff, we purposely meandered that thing for not only for aesthetics, but also to slow down traffic.
I don't mind the meandering. What I was asking staff was, do we have a technical issue here where, even though Acoma was never constructed to go through this parcel, is there a right-of-way already? No? This was never put in?
No.
Interesting. Okay, good. Well, that doesn't present a problem then. Huh? No, not now. That looks much better.
Yeah, I don't think you'd want that in public.
And we have art in public places coming out of this one?
Yes, we do. Yes, it's condition number 131.
Okay.
In your packet.
Half streets, where are the half streets going to be?
Refer to conditions 57.
I'm looking at
58.
a map. Where's the half streets going to be?
Oh, on the map that you see in front of you here, let me go to another.
That's the one I'm looking at.
The half streets improvements would be on Buena Vista,
What's on the other side of Buena Vista right now?
the existing Rancho Buena Vista subdivision.
So there are homes, curbs, gutters, sidewalks, everything else is finished?
Yes.
We're not entering up with
On
another...
that, on that half, there are finished. So the
Okay.
north half, he's gonna finish.
All right, so we're not ending up with half a street like we have in some other places in the city? we'll end up with a full street? Okay, I want to make sure we don't, I was going to suggest that the city go ahead and pay for the other half of the street at this time. Well, I'm running out of questions here, sorry.
Oh, really?
Huh? At least on this subject.
You can always come back.
We haven't gotten to the rest of the agenda yet. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, where is my cue?
Yeah, we need to get the queue back. I'm going to use the restroom.
Honorable Mayor, could I ask one question? Did you
Yes.
say condition 131? Mine stops at 130.
No, it should be. The conditions are 130, the 131 was art in public places. The 132 was that you're compliant with the mitigation monitoring program.
Mine is
Did-
129, art in public places, and 130, mitigation measures. Okay,
No, and then 133 was the future
So-
development of the southern parcel.
okay, very good. Mine must be older. Thank you. Okay.
Okay, Councilman Sanchez.
Thank you, Mayor Parks. Mr. Payne, thank you for your patience and for sitting through a lot of these questionings, but I think it's for the betterment of the whole project. But before I get too far in, I want to thank Martin Magana and the staff, because after 4 years, you know, that's a lot of hours, planning hours. And at the same time, thank the Planning Commission, because they had to sit in on a tremendous amount of work here. And at the end of the day, it always ends up here, and we get the credit, right?
Right.
But at the end, staff and the Planning Commission, I really respect the work that they do and the time they put into it, because by the time we get it, it's almost a finished product. All we got to do now is just smooth it out and make sure everybody's concerns are being addressed, and that at the end of the day, it's going to be a great project when it gets done. But my first question is going to be on that office building. What has the county so far shared with you about what's going to go in there and timeline for that?
Are you talking about in respect to
Yes.
the RFP?
Yes.
We have not heard back from them on a response to the RFP. We
Okay.
understand we are part of a very short list because others can't comply with it. But we have not heard, we've personally been a little bit reluctant until this hearing to proceed too far with it. So immediately after this hearing, we'll push it hard.
Okay. Yeah, because it seems that's the big piece of this whole project there.
It could be, yes.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just going to walk through these projects, and you can just kind of tell me once again. With the restaurant, what are some possibilities again?
Well, restaurants we have spoken to over
Okay.
the last few years have been Applebee's, and that type of a restaurant. At this point in time, I mean, we do not have any commitment from it.
Sure.
We have talked to a couple, what I will call Coachella Valley chains, which is, I'm kind of a local person. I like being able to attract a local chain rather than a national chain. And we'll step up that effort. John Pena is one of our advisors, and so we're gonna, between all of us, your great staff, I'm hoping that we can attract someone fairly quickly.
Now, I see the two retail, the larger one. Could that actually accommodate like food for less or something to that
It
extent?
couldn't.
It couldn't.
The back half, south half, could attract something like that, but you're talking about the east side strip could not. I will tell you some of the possible users. We built a building in Palm Springs, and our tenant is Coffee, Koffi. We have talked to them about taking space. They have seemed very interested in it. Where they're at right now, I'm not positive. We've talked to Togo's and Subway, both which have expressed some interest. There is an upcoming shopping center convention in Vegas. We will talk to some of the other potential users for that. but I think Food for Less, the president of Food for Less is a personal friend of mine, so I will reach out. I could reach out to him, but that piece could not accommodate it.
A grocery store.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Going back to answer the questions on the property values, I mean, from what you've seen in other projects, wouldn't that really increase the property values of homes, having the project there?
I'm a real estate broker and have been one for 30 years. I started off in residential and I built a lot of homes. I personally believe that we're going away from the concept where you have to drive to every retail space. We're going back to this concept of community-based things. Our Oseo project in Palm Springs was designed around that, and we're selling successfully right now, I believe, because of it. So personally, I think having services nearby is a positive feature, but I don't want to. I respect Ms. Roth very much, and I respect her opinions, so I'm not certain if I want to make a capital case of this.
Okay. Well, the other positive end, it's $98,000 when it's built out for the general fund, approximately.
Correct.
Which, you know, really benefits the whole city and all the residents that live here. I think that it's been a long time coming, and I think it's really kicking off that whole Pearson corridor. And I think that we're close enough now that should be proud of the fact that it's going to be a successful project. And I look forward to its approval. So thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Mattis?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Payne, I just wanted to say a few comments. Most of my questions have been answered, and I'm just wanted to say thank you for working with the residents in that area. I think it's important that we do that. Your project was, when I was first elected, you showed your project back then about 5 years ago, and we were excited about it then. I'm more excited about it now. I think the project looks a lot better, and the uses are going to be really well needed in that community, so thank you.
Thank you. We do have a space for your type of business in there.
You can talk later.
Well, I remember in 2006 when you first arrived on the scene for that property, and it's been a challenge getting it going, and I'm very, very pleased that it's going forward at this time. And in most cases, if you go down Monterey, if you go down Cook Street, homes, neighborhood commercial, it really enhances the property value of those that are surrounding a neighborhood commercial. So I don't think that this neighborhood commercial would have any adverse effect on the properties surrounding it. And I'm glad that you're here, and I'm glad you're moving forward after these many years.
Thank you.
And I think now that I will close the public hearing.
Madam Mayor, one point of clarification. As you know, the Planning Commission, as was alluded to, dealt with this project on several instances, and Assistant City Attorney Bianca Sparks was present at most of those meetings. There is one point that she wanted to clarify with respect to Ms. Lennon Roth's March 13th letter, which you discussed.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Before I close the public hearing.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, I wanted to make sure that with respect to condition number 1 that Ms. Lennon Roth included in her request for additional conditions, item 1B, you agree to any structures erected on parcels 10, 5, and 12 shall be 1 story and shall not exceed 20 feet in height. That's the southern portion of the property. At the Planning Commission, we had agreed that the applicant would simply come back to the Planning Commission for additional entitlements on those southern parcels. I wanted to make sure that this evening you are agreeing that none of those parcels will be developed to exceed the height restrictions set forth in 1B.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
What is our normal height? I thought it was 25.
35 feet.
35?
And that proposed zone is 35 feet.
And you're going to limit it to 20?
Yes.
Flat roof?
Well, here's how I measured it up, and I'm not an architect or an engineer. I figured about 1 foot to above grade with the various curb, gutter, step-ups, and so forth. I figured clear inside the building 16 feet, and most likely the neighbors in the city would want at least a 2 foot, if not a 4 foot parapet to hide all the HVAC and things up on the roof, so 20 feet works.
Okay.
Since I was not notified of other things, may I please request the opportunity to ask 4 quick questions that will last only 20 seconds? That is an actual concern. I didn't get notifications.
Okay, you had your 3 minutes, Mr. Comer.
I understand, but he's bringing up things, and there's some changes that were stated that are concerns. The PSM 10, where the wall itself is good enough in other communities to stand in place of a gate.
Okay, Mr. Comer. Okay, Mr. Payne, I'm going to give him 1 minute.
I don't even need that long.
Okay, 1 minute, but I need you at the mic because it has to be on tape.
All right, thank you, ma'am. I am so sorry about that. My questions come real quick because, as Mr. Betts brought up, as far as I know, the PSM 10. I work in the industry.
M10.
The wall can be in place of the chain link, so you don't have to have the chain link in that section. Just a point of order. The other piece is lighting and sidewalks. I've looked at this and I don't see it. Are they on there? If they are, that's fine, but I don't see them in this packet that I just got today. And the last quick thing is, the communities that you speak of, I work in, they're all walled communities, although I do believe that it will help our values of our house. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Comer. Okay. Councilman Betts, you want to speak again?
I was just going to ask the question, are there sidewalks?
Oh.
I'll address the first question. That is, can the wall in the back serve in lieu of the green fence? And yes, it can. So the wall across the back would be in lieu of the green fence. Yes, there's sidewalks. This thing will have planters along the 3 sides, and the sidewalks, because of your city codes, come right off the curb.
Okay.
And there is lighting. I mean, the actual construction of the project, including lighting, sidewalks, and all those things, will go through the process, going through the police department, fire department, planning, building, all the various departments of the city. And also, we're working under a 2010 building code, which has fairly green requirements as well, or very green requirements as well. So this will be built to the 2010 building code, and depending upon what happens to the building code, it may be changed again.
Another one? Okay.
Yeah, I just want to say that, as staff pointed out, you went through the Architectural Committee and the Planning Commission a few times, and I know that you've been very, very cooperative with them, and it's very much appreciated. And I know we had a very excellent planning commissioner at the time who was a real stickler for some of the things that I've seen called out here as changes that you've been willing to make. So I want to thank you. I think, it looks like what you're doing is wanting to make this city look a whole lot better. And so I just don't want to let the time pass without thanking you for that effort and those changes that you made.
All right, you're welcome.
Thank you. I think now I'm going to close the public hearing
Okay.
and ask for a motion on the resolutions.
You said there was a certain order we should do it.
Yes, I'm deferring to my mayor pro tem because she has told me how these resolutions should be and in what order. So I'm going to let her.
We should do the resolution that is on page 189 first, which shows us the second resolution, because in that resolution, we are doing the general plan amendment, and we're doing...
Madam Mayor, if I may, so the way that the items are listed on your agenda cover sheet is the order that they need to go in. The first resolution relates to the environmental clearances for this project. CEQA requires the City Council to consider and approve the environmental impacts before you approve the subsequent entitlements. So you have two resolutions in the packet, correct? The first one is the environmental findings and the approval as required under your zoning code. And then the second one is all of the entitlements in one batch. Everything from the general amendment all the way down to the development permit. And they are presented in the resolution in the order in which you would typically see them approved. We put them all in one resolution so as to make it easier for you, but it is important to have the environmental resolution approved first.
Okay, but I have a question. In one of the latter paragraphs in the first one, it talks about it all being in compliance with the general plan.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, that is a finding that you have to make under CEQA, is that there's consistency in the project.
And once you approve that general plan amendment, then there will be, and because they're being considered together as one item on the council, they're all going to have today's date for approval. And so the CEQA finding is essentially conditional upon your approval of the second resolution. So when you approve them together, you satisfy the requirements under CEQA.
So we can do that, just approve them together?
Oh, yes.
Okay, Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the two motions in item 4 on the agenda.
With the added conditions as brought forth here in the public hearing, which Mr. Magana and Ms. Sparks will get together on.
Okay, we have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Jan Pai and a second by Councilman Sanchez. Please vote. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Payne.
Congratulations.
And thank you for the public comments.
Thank you very much.
And now we're going to move on to public hearing number 2, which is the Underground Utility District Area 1. Martine?
Madam Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council, if you recall back on February 21st, the City Council was given a presentation by Southern California Edison regarding Rule 20A to establish an underground utility district. And at that meeting, the council adopted a resolution calling for a public hearing on the formation of the actual district in accordance with Chapter 13.04 of the city's municipal code. That public hearing notice was noticed, it was published, it was mailed out to all property owners, and as Councilmember Pai requested, we also sent it to all business owners adjacent to the proposed district. So in order to utilize these, so tonight's the public hearing for that. So in order to utilize these funds, the project must produce a benefit to the general public, and it must meet at least one of the conditions that are listed in your report, and that is that the undergrounding will avoid or eliminate an unusually heavy concentration of overhead electric facilities. The location is extensively used by the general public and carries a heavy volume of pedestrian or vehicular traffic. The location qualifies as an arterial or major collector, and/or the overhead equipment is located within or passes through a civic, recreational, or scenic area. So when selecting or approving a district, the council must adopt an ordinance creating the actual district. So of the 3 conditions of the 4 conditions, 3 of them are met by this proposed utility district. So, with that, staff is recommending that you adopt the ordinance that's attached to your staff report. That would have been set in motion the plans for design of the underground utility district, and staff will work with Southern California Edison to coordinate all the plans and contacts and with other utility companies, not just Edison, but Verizon, Time Warner Cable, all the other utilities for this undergrounding. With that, that concludes my staff report. You do have attached an exhibit of the proposed underground utility district. There's also, as part of this report, there's a report that needs to be submitted by the city engineer. That's also attached attached as part of your staff report. It kind of gives the total cost of the affected property and businesses in the area when establishing this district. So with that, staff is recommending that you adopt this ordinance.
Thank you, Martine. We have, I think we've just beaten the heck out of this underground utility district. We've had it as a study session on a couple of occasions. So I'd like to at this time open the public hearing. I have no public comments. Any council comments? Okay, there is no public testimony. I will close the public hearing and ask for the motion to adopt the ordinance. Moved by Councilman Betts, second by Mayor Pro Tem Pai. Please vote. Motion carries unanimously.
Madam Mayor, point are we on the consent calendar now?
We are now going into the consent calendar.
Before we...
What?
I need to read the title
Oh,
of the
I'm
ordinance.
sorry. Read by title only.
It's adoption of an ordinance entitled, An Ordinance of the City Council of the City of Desert Hot Springs establishing the formation of an underground utility district on Pearson Boulevard between Villa Loreto and West Drive.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Betts, you have something to pull?
Yeah, question. We're going to go through this in an orderly manner. I'm pulling these, and so, yes, I would like to pull item 6. And I believe I have a recusal. Maybe the city manager can help me out. Item 9. Is that the essential paving? So I'm going to recuse on item 9. For the record, my wife has a hair salon near there, and this is very close to that salon. And those are the 2 that I want to pull. Well, you can pull one if you want to. Well,
Yes,
taking
you-
them out for discussion
Right.
instead of approving them in mass.
He's saying that you're not pulling item 9, you're recusing yourself from item 9.
I'm recusing on item.
Right, so it's
doesn't
not
need
being
to be
pulled,
pulled.
it's staying on the consent.
Okay, thank you. And I have a couple questions on item 12.
So you're asking to pull 12?
Yes.
Madam Mayor, move the consent calendar, pulling item 6, 12, recusing Councilor Betts from 9.
I believe Councilman Sanchez
I
had
still want to
some-
pull one item. Number 11.
I have a point of order. When these items are being pulled, again, we've mentioned in many meetings, have you given staff time to answer these questions with the items that you're pulling? Have staff had the questions asked to them and you given them time to answer the questions that are being pulled?
I'm not certain.
It's an easy question. Did you send your questions via email or in person before this meeting?
Well, I've sent staff some questions. I don't know if every question I have I've sent to them by email, but we'll see as we go through it.
Okay, so we have a council policy that's supposed to be done. I just want to make sure it's being adhered to.
I just want to make, even if they had gone to staff, I believe I made an attempt to do that, but I'd probably still ask them here, even if I knew the answer, just for the benefit of the public.
Just stating the obvious, we've talked about this over and over again, and we continue to bring questions to staff after, or when they're not able to answer them, so I'm just asking the question.
Okay, we have a motion To approve the consent calendar, pulling item 6, 11, 12, and recusing Councilman Betts on item number 9.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You want to second that? Okay. Please vote. Okay, motion carries unanimously. Okay, now we're going to go to item number 6, which is the travel expenditure authorization for the 2012 International Council of Shopping Centers Convention on May 20 to 23, 2012. Who pulled that? Okay, go.
Every year I pull this one. So who's going on the, who's going and who would like to go to the ICSC convention on May 20th to 23rd is my question. Is there, are any council members want to go to that one?
Madam Mayor, I could give an answer to that if you like. As co-chair of the Economic Development Committee, it's been asked that Councilor Pye and I be awarded this trip as we've gone multiple years. And being that we are chairs of the Economic Development Committee, we were at one point going to ask that there be a contingent of individuals go from the committee, but due to finances in the community or in the city, we feel it's important that, or we feel that it's only going to be able to pay for the two of us to go. We do know that our economic development consultant's going to pay his own way and be part of that, and some private businesses has taken interest in also going, paying their own way and possibly helping in some of the cost of events.
Okay, so we got Mayor Pro Tem Pye wants to go and Councilman Mattis wants to go. Madam Mayor, are you planning to go?
No.
And Councilman Sanchez, did you want to go?
Yeah, I did ask the city manager. I was interested.
Okay, so we got 3 people that want to go to this, and just for the record, I've been to lots of trade shows. I've been to this one, and I'm confident that others can handle that, so I don't want to go. So we got 3 people here that want to go, right?
Can I explain why it would, the activities of the Economic Development Committee, and this doesn't discourage you, you have the right to the council funds also at any time. When the events are set up through our economic development consultant, there'll be 2 council members present. So if you do go, there's just understanding that the meetings are being set and the plan is going to continue to follow the plan that we did last year, where we meet as a small group with individuals. If more than 2 people in the council was meeting, it'd be a violation of the Brown Act, so it would not be able to happen. I don't know how the social events would go. I would assume they're the same as the social events in the community, so if there was a social event, I'm sure you'd be invited to it. But being that the council's budget has shrunk as of last meeting very significantly, I think we're at a point where that's the reason that we're asking for the 2 individuals from the council to be able to go. But if there's a 3rd person, I guess it'd be up to the council.
If I could,
the staff report would have to be changed to add that extra cost in.
Okay, well, having that question answered, if I can continue. Thanks, appreciate that discussion. Other cities, I think, send every council member. It becomes quite a effort. I certainly wouldn't see anything wrong with Councilman Sanchez going. He can speak for himself, but if I think there's enough room in the amount that's been budgeted that 3 people could make that trip. And your comments regarding the Brown Act requirements of 3 people meeting, I'm sure we can handle that one. I think one time I went there, we actually had a meeting from there where it was noticed. I had to put pieces of paper up on the wall, and that's easy enough to do. The city attorney can help us with that. So I would like to make a motion that any council member that wants to go to this one, seeing that it's 3, that anybody that wants to go to this, go, and that it all be done within the spending limits that have been established for this. And I think it's also a very nice thing that those have come forward here in advance of that show. Somebody's done some good work on that. So as long as everybody's in agreement, that motion would be that any council member that wants to go to this, being Councilman Mattis, Mayor Pro Tem Pye, and Councilman Sanchez,
that they take this trip.
You can't send 3 for the cost.
I do have a public speaker card, Mr. Provence.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council, and staff. I am a little bit biased on my comments. I am on the Economic Council, so I am in favor, not because I want them out of town, but because of the work that they do here. It was in the staff council report, it's shown here that there are 16 businesses or enterprises that going through the previous year. We currently have in paper 2 of those, Walmart and Dollar General. Those are going to be physical realities due to Mr. Bracken, our consultant's work, due to our council being there, doing to the other cities, other business people that chose to go last year. Huge strides. As something with this, prior to coming to California, I lived and worked in the city of Las Vegas for about 15 years. I worked this show from the hospitality side. I knew that this show was the make or break for that industry. During this roughly week time, things would come out of thin air, and within a year, things were on the ground being built. This is where the people that have the land, where the people that have the financing, these are the people that have the stores. This is where they all come together. So my support for those that do not know about this conference, the $4,600 that's currently being asked is a pittance compared to what we are seeing now. The $1,600 that Riverside County is asking us to participate in is a thank you, a God-given. For the $20,000, it would be impossible for any municipality outside of the county in Riverside County to go and do this. But for them to offer to the city, it's great. As a side note, City Manager Daniel sent out a note about Walmart looking to change and modify. I want to say part of that, yes, is due to the economics of the country. But I want the city to know that we cannot forget that because of what city staff has done and the council has done as improving the quality of life, a retailer realizes when an area improves the quality of life, those citizens will be more than happy to spend their money to improve, maintain, as well as improve that quality of life. So I think that's one reason why Walmart is doing what they're doing. I think that our developer that we had up here doing the Tahiti project, he will get huge interest now that this has been improved and it's so close to this. The other developers that have been spoken up in the last year, there will be huge things coming out of this. And I think unless we get a 36-hour day, the 3 that are going to show up to Vegas are going to be dead when they get back. But it'll be worth it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Pye?
There's not enough money in the council budget to send more than 2 council people. And the reason why I feel that Mr. Mattis and myself are appropriate is because of the work that we have put in and cognitivity. There are people there that we need to look in their eyeballs again, and they need to look in ours. There's a person we've been working on for 4 years, and he's ready to come, but he doesn't want us to announce his name yet. And it's a big business. And so if nothing else, for consistency and continuity in the networking and things that have been discussed before.
Do we have a motion?
He made a motion, but there wasn't a second.
Well, let me make that motion again.
I was waiting for it to come on the screen.
Well, I'll make the motion again that all 3 council members that indicated interest in attending this show attend it within the budget that's been set up and outlined in the staff report.
Now, a second for discussion.
Madam Mayor, if I may, before the council continues the discussion further, I do want to clarify the Brown Act question and the Brown Act issue, if I could. Mr. Betts correctly points out that at a conference, it may have been this conference in Las Vegas, that he participated in a city council meeting that was agendized pursuant to the rules in the Brown Act that allow for teleconferencing. So what those rules say is that when the city council meets as a body here in the city, as long as a majority of that body is present within your jurisdiction, a member of the council can participate in a city council meeting as long as that member's participation is noticed on the agenda here in the city and also on the location where the member will be participating from, which is a little bit different than what I think I heard the discussion among the council before, which is if there are 3 council members at ICSC meeting with a prospective tenant at a commercial project, that would be a Brown Act violation, and that still holds true. That would not be allowed for 3 council members to sit down at one time with anybody at ICSC. So I just want to be clear that there's a distinction there.
I think I said, Madam Mayor, I think that's exactly what I said, is that we can rely on the city attorney to guide us through that process, which you just did and proved me right. Thanks.
Madam Mayor, more comments?
I don't think he proved you right.
Yeah, he did.
Only if, okay. Yeah.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, my concerns are this, as Pi said, is that our budget's very small, and if we send another council member basically depleted and maybe gone over the budget that's left for council travel, I wanted to attend a conference in Oregon related to, I believe, economic development, and I've asked the staff not to schedule that for me because we just don't have the money. We have to be conservative. Thinking about it more, the Economic Development Committee made a recommendation for the city to send 2 council members and 2 members from the Economic Development Committee, but after the study was done by the staff and brought back to City Council, there's just not enough money in the budget for that to happen. Again, if Mr. Sanchez does go to this event, you'd be buying a ticket to go, and I guess let me backtrack a little bit. The 5 years that I've been on City Council, I've had the pleasure of going to this event and being able to meet a lot of individuals. I think it's counterproductive when you have more than 2 council members, and the reason for it is that you can't all be in the same place at the same time, and what happens is that you end up doubling, and it makes us look as if we're not organized sometimes because you end up hitting a booth or talking to a manager of a Walmart, or let's say whatever it is, and not knowing that we've already made that meeting or not made that meeting. I'm just trying to make a point. So, and again, if we do have special events and it's underwritten by our consultant or a business person, and city discussion does start at that table about different parts of the city, I would be very skeptical or I'd be very leery on having any more conversation with more than 2 council members there. So it would be very, don't want to discourage anybody going, but I think the point's been made that we have to be very conservative of the finances that are left in the city. And at this point, I don't see how it's productive for 3 council members to go. Maybe you can answer those questions for me on why, but that's my concern.
Mr. Sanchez, you're in the queue again?
Okay, Councilmember Mattis, so how many times have you gone in the last 3
I've gone every year, 5 years I've been elected.
Okay, and Councilmember Pai? Okay. Here's the way I see it. Originally, it wasn't just budgeted for 2. But the way I look at it is this way. Those 2 commissions, or that commission, the Economic Development Commission, you're appointed. So you could be appointed to that for the next 10 years. So as we as a council and as a team, we have to get to the point where, we all can share in the experience, but at the same time to have the knowledge and to grow as individual council members and to develop our capacity to learn more about economic development. I mean, you both sit on that committee, and so you would think now with a new council member on board that you would be comfortable allowing a new council member to at least now participate in the process, or at least the way I saw it, it was budgeted for 4 of us originally. So now that it's coming up that, we only have enough for 2, I think that I think there comes a time when, we have to all be able to at least have the opportunity to learn more about economic development and to also spend time with Mr. Bracken. Now, I understand what Mayor Pro Tem Pai is saying about if you've seen someone one year and you've seen them another year, but, I think at the end of the day, everybody needs that opportunity to grow and develop. So we all have basically our strong areas of interest when it comes to city and city policy, and some of us have weaker points of interest because we don't have that experience. So I understand both of your comments, and I understand that what you're saying, but at the same time, at what point even in the new future, when you have new council members, do you give them the opportunity? So individually as council members, we all have to speak up, and we have to share what we feel is of our interest. And so for me, in all honesty, I think the point man is Mr. Bracken at all times. Individual council members or staff there amplify on that opportunity. But I think to say that sending a third council member is going to somehow impact that in a negative way, I don't think that's the way to go here. I just think that it's up to us individually to just make our case. And honestly, that this is an area where I need to develop myself in, and I need to grow, and I need to have the opportunity. So I'm going to speak up and say, yes, I'd like to have the opportunity to go. And I respect the comments that you both each have in this issue.
Mr. Betts?
I got tremendous ability in all of you guys to work together and work out the various issues that you've raised over how you're going to get along and what you're going to do and what everybody's role is going to be. And so to me, that's a non-issue. I don't think there's going to be any problem sorting that out. Two of you can't be, or three of you can't be in one place at the same time in the same meeting, but there's certainly benefit to making sure that anybody who hasn't been there gets an understanding of what that is, for no other reason than when some proposal comes back here that developed out of there, they have a better understanding of it. I've been to the show. Everybody here has been to the show. As much as we like to puff ourselves up and say how important we are up here, at the end of the day, it is the economic development director that's doing the work. We largely become figureheads there. The developers, people coming in want to know that they've got some representation from the council. I don't think we're doing any specific work when we go there that is critical to the process, that one of us go there or the other of us go there. As far as that developer goes, he's going, hey, here's somebody from the city council. Now, the other objection I heard a couple of times was the budget. And I guarantee you, with the amount of money that's been budgeted here, and it's not real specific in what was brought in the staff report, that the three of you could easily go there, have a great time, live very well, and I don't mean that negatively, but have nice rooms. Or is everybody taking their own car, or can two of you carpool? The room is easily, there's all kinds of great deals on rooms there. I think with just a little bit of effort, if the budget is the issue, if that's the only issue, then within that amount of money that you've got set there, even with the, $550 fee to get into the show, that there's more than enough money that's been budgeted for this to take place and for three of you to go there. Just take a little effort on staff's part to shop around for the rooms. I got around and poked on the ICSC site for a little bit, and you got rooms that range from $69 at Bally's, which is a nice room. It's a beautiful property. You get on the monorail and you go straight into the show. It's as close as being right at the front door. You don't have to spend $150 or $129 a night on a room, if it's for the benefit of another council member going. So you guys can certainly, within that $4,600, send three of you to Vegas. If there's any town you can go to, if you're talking about Tokyo or downtown Chicago, you might have, a legitimate point, but there's certainly something you could do to make that work with the three people. So I think the budget is just, the amount that's been budgeted is not even a consideration here, unless you're talking about saving on that $4,600 even more, and you're going to go ahead and economize that way. But as I understand this staff report, we got $4,600 set aside for this, and that just means instead of two of you going, three of you go for $4,600, and it's definitely doable. I've did trade shows for 15 years, responsible for setting them up, and what used to cost us $25, I figured out how to do for 15 or 12 and make a better showing at the show. There's all kinds of ways to pull this one off. If you want my help, I'll be happy to arrange the travel for you, but I'm sure that you can get that done with three of you for that amount of money. And the rest of it is just, let's make sure every council member has had the opportunity to go there, see what it's about, and come back as smarter, better council members. The city manager always likes to remind us the training we get is what helps us do a better job up here.
I think that who we send to the ICSC is extremely important, and non-experienced council persons going at this point in time is not conducive to our making the headway that we are beginning to make. People that are expecting to see these two council members again, along with Michael Bracken, it's important because we are now in a period of growing, and those that are at the ICSC are going to be looking at us, and who they're going to be talking to is going to be extremely important. I'm totally in favor of just the two council persons that have been selected to go. They are the chairs of the Economic Development Committee, and they have experience and they know exactly how to set up these meetings, and looking forward to meeting those that were there last year coming back again. Mr. Mattis?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to answer a couple of questions. I thank you that you respected the comments made up here because they were meant to be respectful. They weren't meant to start any arguments at all. As a new council member, it's sometimes you haven't found your niche yet, and maybe economic development is something that you want to work yourself into, and that's fine with me. Again, we were just putting caution to the fact of what might happen when you do attend the event. If you want to spend the rest of the budget, my concerns are this: if you and I, as the ad hoc members of the Youth Violence and Gang Task Force, there was a conference to come up, we've now spent all the money, and you and I, or at least one of us, could not go to that by the next fiscal budget. So, you know, we're tight with our budget because we're running at the end of it. So I can see if our budget was $25,000 still, I can see sending that extra person. My second comment is this. I don't think anybody's puffed himself up here. I think Ms. Pye, Mayor Pro Tem Pye, and I work well together. We've been working together for a couple of years on this project. Our economic development consultant does drive this and does set the event up, and hopefully one or two of the local business owners will be able to pay their own way and go also, because it shows continuity when we do visit the same people over and over again, and it shows the strides that our community is making. And this is a very critical point in our economic development turnaround for this community. So I'm going to vote with staff's recommendation, because we as an economic development committee asked staff if we could take 4. And they came back and said, this is what you have left, and this is what you should take. You should take 2. That's not made to cause a rift in the city council. That's made because fiscally, that's all we can afford at this point. So, thank you.
We had 20,000, and we gave away 10. 46, that's what's left out of the 10. Okay, Mr. Sanchez?
With all due respect to you, Mr. Mattis, you know, if there was a conference and it involved gang prevention, intervention, I wouldn't go, because I got 14 years experience in it. I'm better off staying home, and with all my grant writing experience and knowledge, I would stay home because I've been there and I've done it. And the point I'm trying to make is that you got to get to a point where you got to share and you got to let others get involved. And for me, I will at least make my comments and speak up about it. We all have to grow and develop individually and professionally. And when I was told there was 4 openings, I said, this is going to be a good time for me to improve in that area and to spend more time with Mr. Bracken. I think at the end of the day, he is the point man. I think at the end of the day, any business deciding to come to the city, it's going to be because of Michael Bracken. It's not going to be because they saw the same council member the following year. I think what they want to see is that the city has the passion, has the interest, they're there, they're being personable, they're getting involved. And I think if I was a business, I'd want to see who else is on that council, who else is involved, because they can look back and say, yes, I remember seeing Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Jan Pai, and yes, she looked me in the eye, and yes, she showed interest. Yes, she really showed that we wanted to have us there. But now there's a different council member here, and he's showing the same type of interest. And I just think that at the end of the day, we all have to grow and develop as a team. And I think that at this point, it's harder when you're a new council member. It's like being a new kid and you're on the table and everybody else gets, the first chance to get at everything else. But the thing is that we have to grow individually. We have to get involved. And like Councilor Betts has said many, many, many times, we all get elected to these positions to get involved and to impact the community. Now, you all have been an opportunity to get appointed by the mayor. And I just think that what you're trying to say is that I've been appointed by the mayor, and now Mr. Bracken is the one leading economic development, and you're saying that staff now has decided that you two have been anointed to go. And personally, I don't go along with that. I think there comes a time where you have to say, look, everybody has an opportunity to participate. And I think you're not taking anything away from it, from letting a junior council member get involved. It seems to me that you're trying to say is, hey, we've been anointed to do this. And I just think that between the two of you, you need to decide who's going to go and give me the opportunity, and don't set me up to be the bad guy here, because I think that's wrong. I'm just trying to do my duty, my due diligence, get involved in the community, do the best that I can, get the knowledge I need, get the training I need so I can come back and be an efficient council member. And if it means having to fight for it, that's what I'm going to do. And so when you look at that budget, and I remember when the city manager said he had $10,000 in the city clerk's office, he had $20,000 in city staff, and he had $20,000 more in council money. So we took $10,000 out last meeting. Now, if you need to put in another $1,500, that's fine. But I just don't like the case where you're saying that a third member is throwing a wrench in this whole thing. I think maybe what you both need to decide is which one of you is maybe not going to go if you're going to look at the budget, and don't throw it back on me, because I don't think that's appropriate.
Mr. Betts.
There was a point.
After your comments, we're going to call the vote.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're beating a dead horse here. The outcome is obvious, but I just want to bring this up, is that there was a point in time where we each had a set amount on the budget per council member, and we used to get reports that would say where we were in our spending. I know that was the first couple of years I was here, and I haven't seen that in a while. I think I've spent $120 this year, reimbursement up to SCAG one time for a meeting. Maybe a little bit more than that, but it's not much. We all had basically a set amount, and I'd like to start seeing that each council member up here manages their own travel allotment, not get gobbled up by everybody else traveling everywhere they want to go. Now, this is the first time that something like this has come up in a long time that I've seen where we've put a set amount. And I was surprised to see that we actually did this. Usually people just go. I mean, there's been a lot of travel. So if this is going to be the way we're going to do this, fine. But I spent $120, and if you want to take some of my travel allotment out, if that's still the way we're doing it, and apply it somewhere else. But I just haven't chosen to travel. I didn't see the need to travel on some of these things. So, but this one is going to go there, Adam. I think it's a lost cause. You're not going unless you're going to pay for this out of your own dime, is the way it looks. Reasonable large responses here haven't fallen on receptive ears unless this vote surprises me. So, Madam Mayor, you said it's time to vote. I agree with you.
Okay.
That's not his motion.
Yeah, I made a motion.
Your motion's not on the screen.
Okay, well, my motion was to send 3 people within the existing budget, and for all of them to figure out a way to save money and economize and get more done with less money. That was my motion. So anybody who doesn't want to get more done with less money will vote no. So I want to get more done with less money, yes.
Motion fails, 3-2.
You money wasters.
Madam Mayor, I suggest that Mr. Betts apologizes for his rude comment that he just made. So you think we're all money wasters?
No, I just
That's
having a
what
little
you
fun
meant.
with this
I just
guy.
wanted to make it
Relax.
clear that you said we were money wasters.
No,
I
it's
don't
okay.
even
I
wanna
think we gotta
talk.
move on with the next agenda item. I think we
I didn't
dispensed
know,
with this one.
just asking.
Point of order, Madam.
so close
Madam Mayor,
to me
make
bringing
a-
up your
make a
last
motion to approve staff
experience with
recommendation.
ICSC.
Oh, you can bring it up anytime you want to. I'm happy
no,
to
no,
discuss
no,
that.
no,
I think
no,
we're off
no.
that agenda item. Why don't
Madam
you
Mayor,
save it for your
obviously-
council
Okay.
comments?
Okay.
Mr. Betts is taking this meeting to another level as usual.
We already had that conversation.
Oh, my.
I made a motion to approve staff recommendation.
Okay.
Oh, we have a new one?
Yes, approve staff
Okay,
recommendation.
so that's nay. What'd you do, abstain?
I didn't want to make them feel bad.
Oh, okay.
Okay, Ms. Pye would like to have a short break.
I agree.
Yeah, I got it. Cool down. Cool down.
What do we got, 5 minutes?
The air conditioner.
I'll give you 10.
The air con-
We're going to be discussing item number 11, which is a resolution amending the fiscal year 2011-12 mid-year operating budget. Assistant City Manager Simpson?
Did you want me to give a staff report, or were there just questions? Wasn't sure.
This is Adam Sanchez pulled this, so if there's any questions, they'll be coming from him.
Yeah, please give the staff report.
Essentially, this is a resolution formally amending our current mid-year operating budget for the city. Staff did an extensive presentation on February 28th in a study session with the same materials. Essentially, there are expenditure increases going in, but they're offset by revenues, primarily due to grants that we received for work that was being done on our facilities, as well as the push now to finish the general plan, the MSCCP, and other things that planning has going on with new development that is in the pipeline due to permits being applied. So due to the activity, there's increased costs, but they're offset by the revenues that are coming in. This maintains the general fund balance at $5.1 million. It maintains our 10% reserve for economic uncertainty. If there are, if you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Yes, I put this item basically for transparency, because mainly if I wouldn't have pulled this item, we wouldn't be getting this information. And I think it's always important that we have so many things on the consent agenda that we're aware of everything that's going on. But the general public, you're really not aware because you don't have the information that we receive when we meet with city staff. And I guess, but the questions I have is for Mr. Simpson is, we're doing this mid-year adjustment, and but the reality of the whole thing is that as we prepare the 2012-2013 budget, am I correct to say that we're looking at a $2.5 million budget deficit next year during that time period?
Yeah, I believe that's what we discussed on the 28th, that there is a projected challenge coming up next year.
Okay. Now, out of this mid-year adjustment here, how many of this is grants, and which grants are involved here?
The grants are probably over 200,000.
Is one of them the energy conservation grant?
Yeah, the EECBG grants, which is the money we use to retrofit our 24-hour facilities with new energy-efficient air conditioning, new lighting, even new air conditioning on this building we're in, as well as our LED traffic signals. And there was some extra money that we were able to get to look at putting LED lighting in for some of our street lights, not traffic signals, but the actual street lights. So that was part of the ARA money that the city got through the Obama administration. So staff's now pretty much fully spent all that money, or is in process of spending all that money right now. And the action here is just really to clean up and match up, because the ARA money was awarded about 1.5 years ago.
Yeah.
And there was a long process with the state on spending it.
All right, the last question is this. As I was reading through this mid-year operating budget, the number 30,000 kept popping up quite often. Now, am I correct to say that the city manager basically has a spending limit of $30,000 right now and at any given time with the city's budget?
Yeah, if it's it depends on what it is. But yes, generally he's limited to 30,000.
Okay. All right, that's all the questions I have.
Mr. Betts?
Mr. Simpson, at this. Sorry. So we're not out of balance at this point in time in our budget, correct? We're going to finish up the year balanced. That's what the goal of this council was, and that's what you foresee, correct?
Well, I think given the challenges the city has had in light of the actions taken by the state legislature, a budget, could change tomorrow. So as I foresee it right now, and since I've been here, that we've made adjustments and changes as we've gone forward. As we're heading into the next 2-year budget cycle, again, the resources the city have need to be balanced against our goals and priorities for the community. So we're in the middle of that process now. We've went in through that discussion on the meeting on the 28th, and over the coming months, we're going to see what it's going to take and what our budget's going to look like. So for next year, I would foresee us having a balanced budget somehow. We've been able to do that the last three or 4 years I've been here. Right now, it's been a photo finish, really due to pressures and influences outside this community and for problems that are bigger than us. But I think, the budget that has been here is a testimony to the goals and priorities that you as a body set and that staff has implemented through the city manager. And I think it's a fluid document. It's not a hard and fast, this is it right now. You always have to be changing, and there have been a lot of changes over the last couple of years. So that's how I would answer that in terms of tempering how to review this. Right now, it is balanced, and it's been a photo finish last couple of years. But I think staff gets that we want to maximize the resources that come into the community and put those to work for the citizens.
I've said this when we've had meetings over the budget. I said it in the study sessions, and I want to say it now, that as I've watched you perform on this budget and the finances, you've done a fantastic job. And there's just no doubt in my mind that you've taken a very difficult situation with crunching these numbers and making them work. And so I just want to make sure, I don't think we've had too many opportunities here in regular session with viewers watching at home to make sure that you get the credit you're due. You've had a tough job, especially with everything that's been thrown in, all these surprises that have come along. We have a couple categories in this budget that I think, as you put it, most revenue estimates will be met or exceeded. Exceeded means that we're going to come in under budget on some items. Is that correct?
I look at it, either the revenues are coming in higher than we had initially estimated, and that our appropriations that will either come in at those or under them.
Okay, but I mean, within the budget, there's some items, I mean, it's basically, it's an educated guess because it's based on prior years, so you hopefully build on the process. It's not like when you first came here that, you didn't have firsthand knowledge of the historical data. You had to go gather it. But now we've gotten pretty good at guessing, but it's still always a guess on the budget. It's an educated guess, but it's a guess. And there's some categories that are going to come in where we thought we were going to spend so much, and for some reason or another, we didn't spend those. And that's what the city manager enumerated to us at the last meeting, is that, in these categories, and he knew that we were going to come in under budget, so those monies were available. But at the end of the day, when you take all that into account, we're going to end up with a balanced budget and a photo finish, as you've pointed out. The question keeps coming up, I keep getting asked by the public, what jobs in our city are owing their existence to the RDA? Either in that a portion of the money set aside for those jobs, or all of the money set aside for those jobs was for the RDA. Do we have a list of those jobs that were specifically owing a portion or all of their funding to RDA?
I think I understand what you're asking.
Well, like,
I think at one point the city had maybe 10 positions that worked out of the RDA, and today we have half of an FTE, so half of a person.
okay, so I mean, you know, some
So
of those,
there's been dramatic cuts and redevelopment in the RDA funding. Now, in addition to those cuts, we've basically transitioned a lot of those things over the last couple of years through a cooperative agreement for existing city staff that we've been reimbursed from the redevelopment agency for cooperative agreement costs, administrative costs. So they're not tied to specific positions, they're tied to a percentage of administrative costs.
So half their time would be working on city general fund business, to use things loosely, and half their time would be dedicated towards RDA, and we specifically allocate the funds that way.
Right, but I think the focus over the last couple of years, at least outside of public safety, has essentially been devoted primarily to redevelopment activities, just by virtue of the projects that have been done.
Yeah, so all right, so a redevelopment agency director who owes all of his existence to the RDA is not a position that's funded by RDA anymore, correct?
That's correct.
So either that person is...
Your council eliminated that position a year ago.
Yeah, I understand that. But there's other positions out there that are also a portion of their funding to the RDA, and we're going to have to make those adjustments in the next budget cycle, correct?
I would foresee more changes coming, yes.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, may I jump in here just to offer one point of clarification? That is, the RDA doesn't exist legally anymore as of February 1st. So what we're really talking about in terms of the half of FTE that Mr. Simpson mentioned, that would be attributed to the city acting as a successor agency to the RDA. So it's technically not accurate to say that the RDA is funding anything or anyone anymore in the city. The RDA no longer exists.
I think that's what I was saying.
In fact,
I just heard you say RDA. I just want to be sure that we're clear that we're talking about the successor agency, not the RDA no longer exists.
I'm talking about when this budget was created, we had an RDA. We didn't know it was going away. There were certain jobs owing. A portion of their pay or all of their pay was owing to the RDA. And my original question was, do we have a list of those positions and know what they are? And we're going to have to make some adjustments. I know, I believe the City Ranch Mirage is doing a jobs audit, and to make sure that we make these proper adjustments. Something's going to have to give. We've lost a big pot of money. That's all the questions I have, Madam Mayor.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve item number 11 on the consent? Please vote. Motion carries unanimously. Last but not least, the list of demands. Russell?
There was one, at least, that caught my attention, and that was the cost to rehab the walkways at buildings A, B, and C over in the other part of what we're calling City Hall, the mobile units. That number, I believe, came in at, was it $7,500? And that seemed a little bit high to me. I had the opportunity to go in on a weekend when I went into office to check my mail, and I saw them doing the work. And I didn't see them replace a bunch of boards. I saw them take the boards out, take out the nails, and then put in screws. A couple boards got flipped over. They put down some tape. $7,500, and I don't have the exact amount. I did get the, I did end up seeing, I saw the bids that went out there, and I'm just questioning why that costs so much. $7,500. And for Councilmember Mattis's benefit, yes, this question was asked by email. I didn't quite get an answer, so I'm asking it here again anyhow, and I probably would have still asked it. But we had two bid proposals. One came in at $8,400, and another one came in at $8,350, and another one came in at $7,500, which I guess is the one that we ultimately approved. Is anybody here, is the city manager here, that he knows why that would cost so much money? My question is, and I think as I put this in my email, did somebody misplace a zero or a decimal point?
Where's the city manager?
He's probably on an airplane.
Where's he on an airplane to?
Sacramento.
Oh, I wasn't aware of that. Did we budget for that? Anybody else want to go with him? We didn't ask that question. Okay. So maybe Mr. Simpson can answer for me. Do you know where 7,500 goes into that project? It seems like an awful lot to me.
Not having the bid documents in front of me, you have them in front of you. I mean, it sounds like from what you shared that there were 3 bids, provided they're all pretty close to each other. I can get you probably a better answer tomorrow through talking to public works staff, but
That would work. It's not fair because I thought the city manager was here. I wasn't even looking up. So that'd be better if I could just, tomorrow, maybe we could.
yeah, I wasn't aware of the question. So.
Okay. And I think actually one of the bids came in at 30,000. So,
That's probably our prevailing wage policy.
yeah, maybe. Okay. You know, I'm not going to go through the rest of these. They're fine. I had about 250 of them I wanted to check, but I think we'll be okay. We'll let it go. Thank you, Mr. Simpson.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve item number 12. Please vote. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, now we have mayor and council member reports. Okay. Councilman Sanchez?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to start off by putting closure to this Las Vegas trip. I think in the future, I really don't want to see staff ever again making recommendations about which council members are going to be going to conferences. If we're going to be making those, if you're going to be empowering staff to do that, I think you're going about this the whole wrong way. I think the city manager is basically the lead person in this city. He works for this council. City staff works for the city manager. So in the future, if any of us council members are asked if we're going to do it on a trip or we're going to go to a conference, we need to do that ourselves. And we need to discuss that amongst ourselves. And never again should we have to come out here in the dais and have to have a major discussion about what right someone has to go and what right someone doesn't have to go, or whether someone has, because they're appointed to a committee, the right to go. I mean, unless it's in a policy and a procedure that says you have that obligation, I'd like to see it. But hopefully this doesn't happen anymore, because for us to hash these out on the dais is the wrong place to do it. So when they're placed on the agenda, I think it's for our benefit, and I think the mayor is the lead person on this council. We need to make sure that these things are discussed prior, and we discuss it and get to a consensus so that we don't have to come out here and have to have basically a debate about who should be going and who shouldn't be going. And at the end of the day, you know, if we had budgeted for 4, we would have been fine to go. And I think there was plenty of monies in there for one more person to go. But let's see if we can improve in our policy and procedures and how we operate when it comes to travel. And maybe that's something that me and Mayor Pro Tem Pai will look at in the policy this coming Thursday when we sit down to take a look at it. I was really somewhat disappointed that we won't have the Ministerial Association anymore making our invocations. But if you look around this city, there are many, many pastors from many, many churches that'll be more than happy to probably come and participate in this process. And hopefully that'll be an opportunity for some new individuals that would honor that opportunity. They could come do that. I think that Pastor Montgomery and Miller, you know, were really class acts. You know, they did it for many years. They really brought a sense of even sometimes decorum to us when we couldn't even get to a point where we were having a hard time working out our own dialogue here in the dais. So they'll be sorely missed. And I wish the best to Mr. Montgomery and Miller, and maybe down the road, this is something that they could come back and have a change of mind on. I was really proud to hear that the Water District stepped up to the plate and provided a check to Little League Baseball. You know, I've always said that if the Water District can give $1,000, why can't we just budget $1,000 for each of these youth groups? They probably, you might think they don't need it, but let me tell you, it sure speaks well to us as a council when they can at least go back and say we made a small investment into their programs. Now, that might not be possible now if we're going to face a $2.5 million budget deficit. And unfortunately, but the work that Little League does and the work that AYSO Soccer does and the work that the Junior Football and All-American Cheer does, you know, is second to nobody. I mean, these are volunteers. They're not getting paid for their time. They're probably taking money out of their own pocket to buy the equipment and supplies that they have to buy. But I think at the end of the day, I would have felt a lot better as a council member if we could at least say that we at least made a small investment into their programs and activities. When you look at the amount of youth they serve, it's just amazing that they continue doing it year after year. Leading into that, of course, on April 2nd, we'll have our next meeting of the Youth Violence and Gang Intervention Committee. And one of the things I wanted to share with the chief, and he can add it to his comments when he gets to speak, is that even though we meet at 6 o'clock, what I'd like to do is part of our big discussion was the Dos Palmas area. As part of the report that we made, even though we had 200 estimated gang members in Desert Hot Springs, we had an estimated 60 in the Dos Palmas area. And that is not part of the city limits. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to ask the city manager if I could go ahead and meet at 5 o'clock on that day every month and meet with the families from the Dos Palmas area as a subcommittee meeting prior to our 6 o'clock meeting, just so that we can have a little bit of dialogue. It's a subcommittee, meaning they could report on what their thoughts are about gang prevention and gang intervention in that area. I think they need to be brought into the mix. I mean, we just can't let them sit out there. I think they want to have a voice, so I would like to see about making that just a subcommittee and meeting with them. It's easier for me if I could meet on the same day at 5 o'clock rather than meeting on a different day and a different time, because I like to meet in this building, and I think they'd be comfortable coming here. But I think at the end of the day, when you look a few years down the road, how is Desert Hot Springs going to be able to incorporate that area and bring them into the mix, where if you really look at it right now, in order to do that, you might need 3 more police officers. Quite a possibility, and I'll let the chief speak to that about when that day were to come, what are we looking at with additional police services in that area? And with that, I look forward to inviting everybody to come on April 2nd, 6 o'clock here at the Carme Center to participate in that committee meeting. I think the last thing I just want to add again is that as we move forward, hopefully that we could do a better job of working together here on the dais. And it's unfortunate that we have to have a debate on issues sometimes that isn't, as many people would say, not in the best interest of the general public. But I think that we'll get to the point where we can find a better way to go about handling certain council items on the agenda in a way that we don't have to be up here in a way maybe just making each other feel not as good as we should. And but I will say this, that it's been probably a long time since you had a new council member up here 4 years ago. So for me, you know, I will basically speak out. And if it gets to the point where we just have to have that debate, we'll just have the debate. And hopefully that we leave again on the dais feeling good about each other, but hopefully we learn something from this. And like I said before, hopefully we'll just won't ever again delegate to staff to decide who is going to go to a city conference. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Pai.
Madam Mayor, Council, on March 12th, Mr. Pope, who's a member of the Economic Development Committee and myself went to the iHub and learned in more detail about what the iHub does and what it can do for residents of Desert Hot Springs, as well as the Small Business Development Center. Out of that, at Mr. Pope's suggestion, a representative from iHub will make a presentation at our next Economic Development Committee meeting, which is on March 28th. He'll do a short PowerPoint presentation, and then there'll be Q&A from the committee. And that's on March 28th, 6 p.m. in this room. On the 14th, Indian Wells offered each of us 2 tickets to the BNP Paribas tennis match on Wednesday the 14th, and I accepted 2 tickets, and I took a resident of Desert Hot Springs, and it proved to be fun. It was their first time at the Indian Wells Gardens, and it was my first time at a tennis match, so they taught me about tennis, and it was fun, and Indian Wells put on a first-class act. 3:15, the Finance Committee met, and individual council members will get briefings as well on proposal for next year's budget. There will also be community involvement through active workshops and presentation. And the goal is for not just us, but you, the residents, to clearly understand the decisions that we have to make. On the 18th, you wanted to talk about this, I think, the Desert Hot Springs Women's Fashion Show. One of the things that they usually do is they have children or young adults, daughters or granddaughters, or members of the Desert Hot Springs Women's Club do the modeling. This time they had a daughter of a member, a granddaughter of a member, and the rest were DHS explorers. Plus, Officer, help me, Chief, Gabby Mendoza? Sergeant. And they did a great job, a really good job, and it was the largest attendance that they've had in years. And also the last thing, I was appointed to the Advisory Council of the Family Services, which oversees our senior center. Madam Mayor, that concludes my report.
Thank you. Okay, it is now my turn. I'm just going to tell you what I've done in the last 2 weeks without any commentary. On the 7th, I attended the hoteliers meeting. This was the first time they'd had an opportunity to get together since our spa tour. The comments were very, very good. The attendance, one spa said that they had over 700 visitors come through, as evidenced by their sign-in sheet. So we really did ourselves good for the spa tour this year. And they are now advertising in the high desert. There is a kiosk lighted, and when you go up there, if you happen to get into the high desert, you'll be able to see Desert Hot Springs being advertised up there. On the 8th, I attended the Desert Valley Builders Association luncheon. The speaker was the general manager of Coachella Valley Water District, Mr. Robbins. And he spoke very, very similarly to the way our Mission Springs Water District speaks. They are facing the same problems as we are here in Mission Springs Water District due to being in the red due to foreclosures. So I guess it's the same no matter where. When nobody's having water on and the place is vacant, the revenue is reduced for these agencies. On March 9th, there was a ribbon cutting for the overpasses. I want to apologize. This was a ribbon cutting for both Palm Drive and Indian, but Palm Drive was still a bottleneck for quite some time after the ribbon cutting. And so I want to apologize for that. But I think if you've been going down there recently, it's starting to open up, and hopefully by the first week of April, The lights will be working, and you will be able to go over there with no problems at all. And I love the Cloverleaf, all right turns. No left turns going onto the freeway, all right turns. Right turn to go east, right turn to go west. So that's a great asset. And when that is fully in operation, it's going to bring more people to our city. On that same day, I attended the Pan-Hellenic Luncheon. This is a sorority groups who recognize powerful women. It was dedicated in memory of philanthropist Jackie Lee Houston. And the women recognized that day were Virginia Waring, who is 97 years old. She is a professional pianist and was married to Fred Waring. And she got up and was very, very eloquent in her acceptance speech. And then the other one was Carol Channing, aged 92. These two women were absolutely amazing. On the 10th, I attended the Seroptimus Desert Cake Auction fundraiser at the Indian Wells Country Club. That evening was the Boys and Girls Grand Auction at the Hyatt Grand Champion. A bunch of money raised at both of these. Some of the cakes auctioned off at over $250. So, but it's a way to make money, and they know how to do that. On the 14th, the Spa Palatiers. Those are a group of artists from the mobile home parks in Sky Valley and East Desert Hot Springs. They come to the Miracle Springs Hotel with their paintings every year, and they are judged. Now, there were 28 paintings dedicated to Desert Hot Springs, which was to have a mayor's award. So with the help of Dot Reed and Audrey Moe, we selected 3 photos in 3 different categories. One category was the most creative. We felt the most creative was a water faucet with water coming out of it. What more depicts the city of Desert Hot Springs than that wonderful tap water? So creative, we thought that was great. The most historical was a painting of Cabot's at night with all the iridescent lighting, which was beautiful. And the most unique was a charcoal of Waioki. And it was a very difficult to judge them because there were so many good paintings, but those were the 3 that we selected. On the 15th, the Desert Literary Society came to Desert Hot Springs and went to the Cabot's Museum. They were able to take a tour and had lunch there. They had never been there and were very, very impressed. And they all said when they got back, the next meeting of the Literary Society, they would tell the others what they had missed. Again, I'm not going to say any more about the Women's Club. It was a great fashion show, a great event. The Police Explorers did a fantastic job, and Gabby did beautiful modeling in her clothes. So that concludes my comments. Mr. Betts.
The public does not see all that goes on behind the scenes. About a year ago, an event took place that caused me to vote against renewing the city manager's contract. That was a $90,000 settlement with a former employee. My responsibility then and now is to the residents of Desert Hot Springs. My vote in response to that event was supported by legal counsel, and it was in keeping with my responsibility to those that voted to put me in this seat. That vote was not well received. It was a tough vote, and it has set off a series of behind-the-scenes attempts to quiet me, to make things personally very difficult for me. On other matters that I have sought to take a closer look, I have also been met with attempts to shut me down and quiet me. I count at least 4 times so far. I want to make this clear. I'm not up here looking for trouble, but when problems stare me in the face, I don't have the luxury of looking the other way. I will tell you, as I have told the city attorney and others, what is being thrown at me is having a chilling effect on my ability to provide oversight on behalf of our residents in this job that I was selected to do. This council is met to discuss a bogus charge of harassment being leveled against me. It is clearly motivated by my looking
Madam Mayor.
into questionable contracts. I'll finish.
No,
I have
no,
pressed to
no.
have
Madam
several
Mayor.
matters
Turn his
looked
mic
at.
off.
Madam Mayor,
Instead of my inquiries,
Mr. Betts, Madam Mayor, would you please instruct the counselor to stop?
You have to stop. This is closed session.
I'm not discussing anything about closed session. There's nothing in here about closed session. If my poking around makes people uncomfortable, I can't avoid my assignment and my role. I can't look
Madam
the
Mayor.
other way when $10 million of public improvement bonds has been given away at Skywalk. I can't, that's not closed session. I can't.
Madam Mayor,
look
may I have a
the other way
recess,
when
please?
other development bonds in this city are left to expire.
Have a recess.
Just issue my statement publicly.
10 minutes. It'll take 2 minutes. 2 minutes? 10 minutes?
I guess, I don't know. No. I'll just go start talking now, right? Come up. I didn't reference to any specific one. Do you want me to name the specific ones that have come up? How many times this has come up? It's not the first time, there's 4 times. I said that at the beginning of the statement. I'm going to tell you, I am not going to be deterred from doing my oversight role on this council.
Madam Mayor,
If you want to listen
so-
very carefully to the rest of this, I'm sure Ruben will have no objections. I offered to show this to the city attorney, and he didn't want to look at it.
That,
Why don't you wait till you're recognized by the mayor before you speak?
Was recognized, I got cut off.
may I address the council, Madam Mayor? Yes. So I appreciate your patience as I try to talk to Mr. Betts about the statement he was making. The reason that I interjected was because I heard Mr. Betts mention a matter that I believe to be a confidential personnel matter of the city, currently ongoing. I believe the council, some members of the council felt the same. I am asking Mr. Betts, if he continues in his statement, to refrain from providing any further details or any further encroachment on that private personnel matter. That's my duty as your city attorney to ask him to do that. Mr. Betts obviously is a member of this council. He's got a right to speak. I'm admonishing him and asking him not to delve into private personnel matters. Mr. Betts has told me that he will release a statement tomorrow publicly. He asked me to look at his statement, or offered for me to look at his statement. I declined. I think that the best thing I can do is give this admonishment in public, and hope that Mr. Betts will do what's best for the city.
For the record.
I think, just a moment, please. I think that the thing that must be recognized is that if he is allowed to go forward, and any comments that can be used against the city, that he is independently at risk, and putting the city at risk as well. I think that's important for everyone to understand, and for you, Mr. Betts, to understand before you go forward.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I was referencing past instances, not any specific one that everybody jumped out of their seat over. So I'll continue. If my poking around makes people uncomfortable, I can't avoid the role that I have been put in this seat to do. I can't look the other way when $10 million of public improvement bonds have been given away at Skyborn. I can't look the other way when development bonds in this city are left to expire for no good reason, and the residents of those developments are left to live with blight. The former Jewish temple building deal stinks on several fronts. And it was well documented by deliberations up here in this council that there were improprieties in the contract for the Cabot Register position. We voted on that. I sought a seat on this council for one reason. 3 years before I ran for office, I was very actively involved and watching what has continually held this city back. The challenge then was to try and find out what was going on in time to be able to do something about it. Now I've had a much better look as a city council member. What has been reported in the press over the years is only what has bubbled up to the surface. Behind the scenes, there is something very wrong in this city, and it is not just a few multi-million-dollar mistakes. to repeat, when I see these attempts to quiet me in response to my legitimate inquiries as a council member, I take it as a sign there is reason to keep digging. That concludes my council comments.
Mr. Mattis?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I attended the CVAG ribbon cutting also. A lot of questions were asked by the public about why Palm Drive was behind Indian, and there was a slowdown due to a union issue about, I believe, a couple months into the project, so it did slow the project by a month or two. But again, it was told to us at that event that Palm Drive will be open fully here in the next couple of weeks, and we talked about this a couple years ago. It was exciting because when I was on the Transportation Commission, they were very up in arms about whether they do one project at a time or they do them all at one time or try to get them all done. And the project manager said, let's do them all. And 18 to 24 months later, everybody will be very happy because they're done, and that's what's happening now. So it's very exciting for our community to have those two interchanges complete. I attended the Junior All-American football golf tournament, and it was a fun event, and congratulations to them for their success on that event for, I believe, the third or fourth year in a row. I also attended the Boys and Girls Club auction. It was a good event for the Boys and Girls Club. They raised, gosh, it's going to be close to $500,000. It was just incredible. They were giving away, or they were auctioning off trips to Europe and everything else, and raising lots of money for the Boys and Girls Club in our community, along with the other four that they represent. I attended my Riverside County Transportation Commission meeting. There was a public hearing on some right-of-way property, and there was some presentations on the budget, but there wasn't anything totally pertaining to the city of Desert Hot Springs. Parks Committee met yesterday, last night, and there was some issues with AYSO and some of the events that are going on at the community park there, and they are being handled by staff. The rest of the committee members gave reports. There was also a report from Joe McGee on some of the things that I believe it's called the NICE committee is doing, and we went on from there. With that, the last Trails Committee, Camille Lynn, who's been pretty much in charge of that committee, even though she says that myself and another council member were chairs of that committee, but she pretty much took care of that committee. She's leaving the community. It's unfortunate. But she was part of trying to look for a better pathway for the 1E11 project. And with that, it came to my attention that a lot of the community members needed to get more involved in that project. So I asked that the Trails Committee appoint 2 members to a subcommittee with 3 members off the Parks Committee to study what the pathway could be for the community of Desert Hot Springs and maybe bring a recommendation back here. So when that project, if and when it does come to the City Council, that there's a recommendation from public members that deal with these things. So 5 members have volunteered to do that, and they'll be meeting soon to talk about that project. Today I was fortunate to be asked as a business owner to come to a interview by the, I'm going to get this wrong, Chief. It's the COPS program. It also encompasses the CPI program. Am I right so far?
United States Department of Justice COPS office.
COPS office, who funds one of our officers. They brought a room full of individuals that kind of hit all groups of the community and got to be interviewed by this individual. It's an audit that's done on the monies that are spent, and the auditor was very nice and very friendly and was, I believe, very impressed. I think she used at one point us being a model, so I hope that continues and the federal auditors keep coming in for that program because it is a good program for our community. It is a shame the Ministerial Association has pulled out of doing the invocations. It was something that I talked about as a liaison to their committee. We've talked about multiple times in the last couple of years that I've been liaison to them, and most recently there was some more talk, and there was an email sent out by the city attorney and a request from some council members, and which was shared with the Ministerial Fellowship. It was heavy on their hearts about whether they should or should not continue, and they felt to not put the city of Desert Hot Springs at risk, they should not continue to pray as they were. As you heard from some of them tonight in public comments, it's very heavy on their hearts, and it had nothing to do with an individual of our city or our city council. I believe it had to do with the collective thoughts of each and every one of the Ministerial Fellowship members on how they really felt about not putting the city at jeopardy. So it's too bad that it had to be that. And some of the comments that have been made tonight, you know, I have total respect for you, Mr. Sanchez, and decorum is something that you've used many times, and I'd be happy to debate any item with you. And I really, really thought that Mayor Pro Tem Pai and I were doing the right thing by asking the Economic Development Committee to make a recommendation to city staff to make sure there was funding for all of us to go. At that time, I don't think we had any idea that any other council member wanted to go to that event. So I understand your point. I don't disagree with it. And if it comes to that again, I don't think I'd make that suggestion for us to tell you if you can or cannot go to an event. On the other hand, I've been on this council for 5 years. I'm going to continue working on economic development as long as I'm appointed to that committee. I'm going to continue working on the parks as long as I'm appointed to that committee. I'm going to continue working on transportation as long as I'm appointed to that committee. I think I've put in my time in 5 years. I continue to better myself by attending some of these conferences. I know Mr. Betts has made many comments about us spending money to go to these different events and we shouldn't spend so much, but his tone changed tonight. So I just want you to understand my point. My point isn't to have an argument or debate with you at all. I really thought we were doing the right thing by asking those questions to be brought forth by staff. And lastly, decorum. We're continuously talked about that in the past and how we're supposed to work with each other and be nice to each other and try to be respectful. And I think we do a pretty good job of that. We might not see eye to eye on things. We might have a good debate over it. But I don't think when I walk away the dais, I have a disagreement. And I'm just asking Mr. Betts, you need to stop making your rude comments when these sessions are over because it's wrong. You've made it very clear that the mayor made a comment before that you took offense to. I take offense to your continued comments on the record of this mic whenever we finish an item that you disagree with. I'm sorry it might not go your way, but you owe us an apology for your comments, as you've asked for an apology for comments that have been made to you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I'm not going to say anything more. There's lots that I could say, but I think at this point I will simply ask the Chief of Police to give the city manager's report.
I'm going to make it the police chief's report since he's not here and he can't tell me no. I couldn't hardly do half of his job, but he wanted to share a couple things that will be, if they're not already on the city's website, available to the public. In the economic development side of the shop, Dollar General was approved by the Planning Commission on March 13th and will be submitted to City Council on your April 3rd meeting for your consideration. Public Works, Operation and Maintenance reinstalled. Well, let me make a couple things clear. There's a bunch of stuff on this list, but I'm just hitting some key issues, so I'm not giving you the full ones available on the city website. They reinstalled a vandalized park rules sign, we were getting some complaints about. In public safety and administration side, we held our 6th of 8 community policing academy meetings on our 6th class, and it's set for graduation, I believe, on March 26th. In patrol, officers handled 644 incidents this past week, including 14 misdemeanor arrests and 10 felony arrests, 97 traffic stops with 40 citations, and I'll have to let you know the Palm Drive corridor is going to be quiet after the improvements there at the freeway. We don't have any of our off-road crew is thinning, and 90 patrol checks, including city parks and businesses. One highlight in code enforcement. Code enforcement was successful in getting 4 inspection warrants for residential properties. This gives our staff the ability to actually go into properties that need to be abated and knocked down to gather evidence for the court to come back and actually ask for an abatement warrant to actually clean up and make the property safe. We've contacted local contractors for bids for inspection surveys and demolitions and abatements of 4 residential properties. Lastly, in response to Councilmember Sanchez's question relative to the ad hoc committee, so my suggestion relative to that would be going back to the ad hoc committee and and asking for guidance and direction from your counterparts on the committee that legitimately you can meet, as you know, with anybody any time. If you're looking to pull in a specific community to do specific meetings, I think we put that on the agenda, or you bring it up under general conversation and ask how the committee wants to. And we had talked at the committee level too. The meeting monthly gives anybody the ability to come and share their perspectives. And I at least had offered my perspective is if we start sectioning off, and clearly from a gang, some of the challenges involved with the gang, Dos Palmas has a significant piece of the conversation. And at our next meeting, we'll actually be getting clarity. We'll have the gang task force, gang prosecutors. They're talking specifically about those issues and bringing the current status to consideration. So at least under the committee member comments, I think it makes sense to raise that issue and ask your colleagues what direction they'd like to do. That concludes my comments.
We have a couple of public comments that came in after public comments were finished prior to the meeting. Nigel Gaynor?
I'm here to address what happened to me or to my son. Oh, there we go. Okay. I'm here to talk about what happened to my son. I know a lot of you, your son and my son have gone to school for years. Adam, I've known you for years. I've been a coach at the Boys and Girls Club for years. Done a lot to help this city, and I want to see it grow. I love this city. My mom just died. She's 89. She was here. She was a squeaky wheel for years. I lost a brother in 1990 by a violent death. Was killed by a 16-year-old Mexican boy. And we saw him through to jail. He's out free now, and I harbored a lot of resentment for that. I wanted to, revenge was, big in my mind. I grew out of that. In 2003, my daughter was shot 3 times by gangs at a party in Palm Springs. She's fine today. She's scarred for life, but she's good. She's doing good. And my son was robbed on the way home from school. They took his phone, surrounded by 6 kids. They didn't say that they were from the gang, the K gang, but my son brought up some pictures from Facebook showing that they were throwing the signs. And from what he tells me is one of the kids had a gun, that he got arrested a couple days later. He didn't resist, and I'm really proud of him for doing that. But when we drive by the park, he slouches down in the car. He's scared. And I want to see something done. We go by that park every day, and there's kids smoking weed, and there's kids fighting, and there's kids being mean. And I guess I should be standing up here more often, because this isn't right. There's cameras there that I don't know if you guys are watching it, but we gotta do something. That park is beautiful. I was so excited to have that park built there. I grew up playing basketball. I love basketball. I've coached basketball. I've worked with him. I know these kids in this town. There's great kids, and they're all scared. They want a safe place to go. The first time he came, he went to the park by himself to play basketball. This was just after it was opened. He came back in tears. 2 guys jumped me, beat me up. He's never gone back since. I just, I'm not here to point fingers. You guys doing a great job, and every time I talk to one of your officers, I tell them, I commend them for their hard work, because it's not easy. I know it's not easy, but something's got to be done about this. There's just too much happening at that park, and if you're not in that group, it's scary. Kids, this is such a wonderful town, and it's been beat up and kicked to the curb long enough. My mom was a squeaky wheel. She used to come here 10 years ago and make changes and demand changes, and she did it. She was great at that. And I came up here and I was so frustrated to hear bickering and fighting. And what happened tonight? I got this bad taste in my mouth again. I don't want to hear it. I want to see professionalism. Here it is. All comments directed. Members of the public are expected to remain professional, courteous, and civil decorum. There wasn't. You need to be admonished, Russell. This gives the city a bad name. You want a better city.
Madam Mayor, 3 minutes.
Be a
has
professional.
elapsed.
I've gone over. I'd like to talk to you after if we could, and see what we can do. I would love to help, and I know there's a whole bunch of people that would love to help too. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, and I'm sorry for what happened.
Thank you.
Mr. Bentley.
I've lived here 35 years. I was a Boy Scout. I was chapter chief for Order the Arrow, which is the honor society for Boy Scouts. I was a paratrooper. I was on the radio for 10 years. The way that Mr. Sanchez has been treated, the brutal, inappropriate way that he's been treated, I haven't seen that type of stuff. Maybe in a certain state that I don't want to besmirch, but that type of brutality, I haven't seen that too much, especially in some place where you're supposed to have the dignity and decorum that people are supposed to have here. It seems that Mr. Sanchez is in a catch-22. He's not allowed because supposedly he doesn't have the experience. I don't know, I've seen his resume. He's got a lot of experience, but somehow there's this catch-22 that he doesn't have any experience, and because he doesn't have any experience, he can't get any experience. The truth is, it's a pure political power play. Mr. Sanchez is right to be focused on the messages that we give to the kids. Like I said, I lived here for 35 years. I came here when I was 9 years old. I just told Mr. Sanchez just a little while ago about an incident where at one of our parks, when I was growing up, I was almost stabbed. Has that happened to any of you? The one person that grew up here, did that ever happen to you? Anything like that? The idea that this town is safe now, it may be safer in some places sometimes, but it's not a safe town. And it is true what I've been saying for years now, that the messages that we give to the kids are the most important thing. I can only control me, and you can only control you. So the only thing that we can do as individuals is be examples, be the proper examples. And definitely the messages that have been given to the kids are not the appropriate ones. Mr. Betts has been much maligned, even though he has been 100% right on the things he's been maligned on. The fact of the matter is that years ago, I was police commissioner for Desert Hot Springs, and I was, like a recent case, in a closed session, I was brutalized. I felt like being taken to the hospital. The types of things that happen there, the types of things that they'll say they're going to do to your future, the implications. And these people are sitting there with all the power, all the power. And the people in this town that do politics play hardball. The fact of the matter is, if something is said in closed session, like let's say you talked about Mickey Mouse in closed session, does that mean that suddenly Mr. Betts can't talk about Mickey Mouse? It's not true. If he obtained information not from the closed session, but somewhere else, or if he wants to say he doesn't think what's right happened there, then he's perfectly free to do that. It's his legal right. Thank you.
Okie dokie. I think we're through. Oh, we have to go to closed session again. Okay, we're recessing then, we're not adjourning. We're adjourning to closed session.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, the City Council will now convene to closed session with respect to item 2 on the closed session agenda, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to subdivision B of section 54956.9 of the Government Code, one case. No other matters will be discussed.